So for the entire year, Joe Biden said he would not pardon his son. And sure, all the people in media acted like they believed it. And then, of course, yesterday, Joe Biden announced he would be pardoning Hunter Biden. Now, the funny thing is, it wasn't just a simple, hey, the past couple of years, he's been charged over these crimes related to a gun and some taxes. So I'm going to say you are pardoned because you're my son and I love you. He said, everything you've done or may have done or will do from January 1st, 2014 till December 1st, 2024 is you are pardoned. And so who's it? That was Phil.
That was me.
And so certainly it doesn't seem to make sense that this was just about a gun charge. This is likely to do with the Burisma scandal and international influence peddling. And it's being masked as though it's just because the DOJ is selectively prosecuting Hunter Biden, which makes no sense because it was his DOJ. So we're going to talk about that. And there's a lot to break down. But here's my favorite thing. Karine Jean-Pierre in the press briefing is just getting absolutely roasted by the press because, of course, Joe Biden lied the whole time and they all believed it. So we'll talk about that. Plus, coincidentally, Donald Trump also nominated Kash Patel for FBI director right before this pardon. And Kash, of course, is going to be going after the deep state, as it were. So we'll talk about that and so much more. Before we do, my friends, head over to mypillow.com/Tim and buy pillows using promo code Tim. Guys, I know you need pillows, and we love pillows too, and we use MyPillow. So MyPillow is glad to announce their Christmas extravaganza is finally here. You can get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. The famous My Slippers that haven't been on sale for over a year. Regular price is $119.98. Now it's only $59.98. Their 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities. Only $29.98 with hundreds of MyPillow products. There's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. Don't forget the classic collection pillows at wholesale pricing. That's definitely a big plus. Only $14.98, $18.98. Upgrade to a king for $1 more. They got body pillows for $29.98 and multi-use pillows for $9.88. So go to mypillow.com/Tim. The link is in the description below. Use promo code Tim because that's the best promo code. Support the show and support Mike. We're big fans. He put everything on the line for what he believed in, and boy, did they punish him for it. But I really do think he's got great pillows. I sleep on one every single night. But don't forget, also, head over to castbrew.com. And ladies and gentlemen, due to a programming error, our Black Friday sale has been inadvertently extended until Wednesday. And so they told me we actually said it wrong. So it's going till Wednesday. And I'm like, sure, let's just sell more coffee. So if you buy 2 bags, you get 15% off. You buy at least 3, it's 20% off. And if you buy 4 or more bags of Cast Brew coffee and support the show, 30% off. So hop on over to castbrew.com. It's our coffee company. We sponsor ourselves. Pick it up. You'll love it. Everybody's favorite is Appalachian Nights, but Stand Your Grounds has been popping off. And of course, head over to timcast.com. Click Join Us so you can hang out in the Discord server. And I assure you, the members only uncensored show tonight is going to be particularly fun, and it's gonna get wild. Because we were already before the show having a hoot, and I had to tell the boys, settle down, boys. Those jokes are a little too edgy for the family-friendly portion of the show, but in the members-only section, we're going to have a good time. So smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we got a couple guests. We got Madison Cawthorn.
How are we doing, Tim? Good to see you.
Doing great. Who are you? What do you do?
My name's Madison Cawthorn. I'm a former congressman out of North Carolina. I now live in the great state of Florida, and I have a phenomenal time living down there.
Someone's phone going off? Well, anyway, sorry about that.
It disappeared now. It's Nancy Pelosi. She anytime
Feds are here.
Anytime I go on somewhere, she's just trying
Any
to
Palestinian pagers going off.
That's just a mobile.
No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't accept that.
Oh, okay.
It was Hezbollah.
That's true. That's
not Palestine.
Sorry, my bad.
Anyway, sir, continue.
Yeah, but anyway, so I live in the great state of Florida, and then, I got a call that Tim Pool was looking for somebody to come on here. Last time I was on this show, I had just woken up from a nap because the great Luke Ball gave me a phone call. But anyways, I said yes to it, thinking you were in Washington, D.C., but then I found out great news that we weren't doing in Washington, D.C. We were doing it in the great state of West Virginia. And I will tell you, I love the people in West Virginia. I love the area around here. It's very similar to where I grew up in the good old Appalachian Mountains. So very happy to be out here.
Right on. Well, you mentioned Luke's here.
Yes, I am Madison Cawthorn's former comms director, so dealt with his communications and all.
It was an easy job, wasn't it, Luke?
Raised my blood pressure, and my doctor said that you were single-handedly responsible for all of that. So, and now I just do some political consulting as well. So that's
right on. Thanks for hanging out. Elaad is here.
What's up, everybody? My name is Elaad Eliyahu. I'm a field reporter and Jewish affairs correspondent here at Timcast. What's up?
He made that up, by the way.
I am the noisy Phil Labonte. I am the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. So let's go.
Here's the story. We're going to jump in with this one from Politico. We haven't seen a pardon as sweeping as Hunter Biden's in generations. I mean, it's absolutely wild. I think I have the actual statement here from Joe himself. He says, today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter from the day I took office. I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted without aggravating factors like using a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser. People are almost never brought to trial on a felony charge solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who are late paying their taxes because of serious addictions, but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties, are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. He then basically says, no reasonable person who looks at the facts, there's a bit more here. He says, the DOJ had a plea deal, it fell through, and then goes on to say blah, blah, blah. But here's where it gets interesting. He says a full unconditional pardon for those offenses against the U.S. which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period of January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024, including but not limited to all offenses charged or prosecuted by special counsel David C. Weiss on docket, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. The interesting thing here is that it's going back 11 years. And more importantly, when this pardon was issued, it pardoned Hunter for an additional 4 hours into the future, which many people pointed out he was free to commit any federal crime he wanted because the pardon was that broad. We have not seen something like this in generations or ever. And it is, I believe it is fair to say, and I stand by my belief in this, that this was the intention is to cover up the international influence peddling, China, Moscow, and the Burisma in Ukraine. And I'd actually go one step further. And I normally don't make big assumptions like this, but I actually think the gun charge and the tax charge were intentionally brought about for the purpose of giving Joe Biden plausible deniability when he did pardon Hunter Biden. So we were asking ourselves all throughout the year, like, why are they charging Hunter? I mean, this is Merrick Garland's DOJ. Joe Biden could fire him and say, don't go after my son. How dare you? And the argument was they're using it as an excuse so that when they go after Trump, they can say they're not biased. Sure. I think there's a strong probability that they said, hey, if we lose this election, Trump is coming after us over Ukraine Burisma, and there's nothing we can do about it. What do? Okay, well, we'll issue a pardon for Hunter and his role and what he did at Burisma. But issue a pardon? If the year comes to the end and we say Hunter's pardoned over Burisma, they're going to say, what? What does that mean? You give him a couple light charges that are weird, and then they say, we're going to pardon him for these charges, but make the time frame very broad so it'll cover all of those Burisma-related scandals as well.
I think that I don't know that I have a strong conviction as to whether or not the intent of the gun charges and stuff was so that way they could get a broader blanket immunity. But I think it is pretty
excuse for a pardon.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a take on that. But I mean, it's possible, but I don't have any kind of inclination for or against that. But that being besides the point, it is clear that this is about more than just the gun and tax charges, because there's no reason to go back to 10 years. I would like to see Congress subpoena Hunter Biden now because he's no longer protected by the Fifth Amendment. So he would have to actually answer any questions. He can no longer say, I stand on the Fifth Amendment. So if there is anything that is that's violated the law, that either I believe his uncle has done or that his dad has done, he would be, obligated to discuss it or talk about it. He couldn't say, I refuse to comment on this because it, could implicate me. So yeah, but that would be nice.
I've heard that, but it's kind of strange because that means this pardon covers every single potential crime he could have committed, meaning he has to testify to any of the weirdest things he may have done completely outside of any of these scandals. That seems weird to me.
It does, but you could start. The thing is, the laptop has a lot of information, and I personally don't know all the stuff. But
this means that he's been pardoned for any federal sex trafficking.
Yeah.
We got a lot of weird stuff on that laptop. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I think the majority of us in this room the reason we're upset about it is because the Democrats as a whole, I mean, you shared a video of this, of them literally talking for 9 minutes. Your video was hysterical because it was sped up. But no one really has a problem with a father pardoning his son, saying, I'm going to defend my son. The issue that we have with this is that he said he was not going to do it. He lied directly to the American people. There's many articles that are out right now saying that it was always talked about in private that this was on the table. And so we knew that he was lying in the wholesale. But and this is something we
No, I agree with the lying part, but I actually disagree. He's a father pardoning his son. There's two reasons why I would disagree he should not have pardoned his son. And I'll throw it to Matt Walsh, who made the point almost immediately. You know, it's one thing to protect your son because you don't want him to go to prison, but it's another thing to enable your son to be a bad guy who's creating shell corporations or whatever he's accused of doing to bypass taxes. You're not actually helping your son if you keep bailing him out of all the horrible things he does. But I think he shouldn't have got the pardon because I wanted to see him challenge the gun charge to the Supreme Court to get it thrown out. That they're charging him for self-incriminating on a Nix form.
So when I'm looking at this, you have to also consider that he waited until this point and said for this long he was not going to pardon his son because they threw every wrench in the system that they possibly could for an extended period of time. They stopped this from getting prosecuted in Washington, D.C. They stopped it from getting prosecuted in Florida. Every step of the way, I think he truly walked out there for a period of time and said, I will not pardon my son. And the reason is because he thought that he could use that leverage of power from his position as president to stop the process. And so once Donald Trump won, then all the floodgates were going to open up against Hunter Biden. And just remember what they did to Donald Trump. I mean, they sent Miami SWAT through his front door because he had allegedly documents in his building. I mean, to the rest of the presidents and vice presidents, NARA, the National Archives Records Administration, basically issued a casting call. Said, check between your couch cushions and make sure you don't have any classified documents like H.W. Bush was going to find something from Saddam Hussein in his chest of drawers, right? But instead, they send all of the police and, basically raid Mar-a-Lago over allegedly having documents. And in addition to that, continue to throw lawfare after lawfare against him through the Merrick Garland Department of Justice. And so once Trump wins, they realize we're no longer going to be able to use the wheels of our justice to our advantage. And it's completely off the table now. So he might have gone out there for months saying, I will not pardon my son because he thought he could use his position of power to his family's advantage.
It's possible that they didn't think they would lose.
No, they didn't think they were going to lose.
There was probably, especially.
Did you?
Trump was gone.
But did you see the story that Kamala's internals always had her behind Donald Trump? They knew she was.
Was
down.
he making comments about not pardoning Hunter before Kamala?
That's the thing.
Took over?
Before he got swapped out.
I think that he was under the impression he thought that he was going to be the guy. And I think that the reason that he was behaving the way he did is because he believed that he was going to beat Donald Trump. He's like, I'm the only guy that's beaten Donald Trump, and there's no one else that apparently is going to. I'm the guy that the Democrats have chosen to run. So he'd made all the, he was making all the moves as if he was going to be, it was going to be Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. And then the debate just, threw a wrench in the works, and they had to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also the statement that he made saying that very few people are ever charged for falsifying a record on a gun buying thing. Obviously, these people have never dealt with the ATF. They've never dealt with trying to run a gun shop or anything. The ATF is so out of control. The Department of Justice is so out of control. I know several people, and I mean, like when you're filling out these gun forms, you go over them very carefully because if you mess them up, you're going to you might go to jail. You also lose all your guns for a period of 180 days. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So I do think that that the intent was to set the stage for a second Biden administration. I don't think that it was about that. I don't think that they believed that they were gonna lose. I think that they believed that all of the years of 4 years of 8 years of Donald Trump's the baddest man in the world and the orange man bad and et cetera, et cetera. I think they believed that they were gonna win. I think that they probably were believing the internal polling saying that Donald Trump wasn't going to be able to beat Joe Biden, and I think that it came up and it bit him in the ass.
And also, you really got to think about when Joe Biden came up through the ranks in politics. In his mind, he had everything going for him that he needed to have. He had all of the Hollywood elites. He had all of the media companies on his side. He was trashing them through earned media, and he really thought, I think, he was going to win. I legitimately don't believe that Joe Biden knew he was out of the race until it was announced on the news. I don't.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
That letter that was posted on his X, I don't think he wrote. I think
at all.
No.
They probably kept telling him to bow out, and he said no. That week, he said, I'm not going to do it. Then this letter appears on his Twitter account being like, yeah, I'm out. I don't think he wrote it or knew about it. But so let me show you this. We had this viral video, 9 minutes of Democrats and liberal media saying that Joe would never pardon his son. And this morning, I was thinking 9 minutes is too long. I don't want to watch 9 minutes of these people. It's bad enough I got to watch 1 minute of them. So I decided I would make my own edit of it where every time they say it, it speeds up and exponentially increases in speed until it's incomprehensible shrieking, which, to be fair, is already the case. But I will play a little bit just so you can hear it. And this is not about me making the joke. It's about you understanding the media and how they responded to Joe saying he would not issue this pardon. If it plays.
Before a family.
I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Letting the world know that he will not wipe away the decision of 12 of his son's peers.
Was asked directly, and he has said he wouldn't pardon his son if he gets convicted.
Let's wait and see what happens if he loses.
Yeah, but he said it.
He's going to get pardoned by his dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son. Major commitment from the president, accepting the outcome of the trial and also pledging not to pardon his son.
Okay, you get the point. And then if you want to watch the photo, you can, but it eventually turns into this. Because it's no, in all seriousness, 9 minutes was too long for me to listen to. Now, here's why.
Far more intelligent than the normal speed, by the way.
And that is true. I'd rather just hear that. But here's why it's interesting. This story from the Daily Wire. Pardoning Hunter was on the table when Joe Biden said he wouldn't. Biden publicly said he wouldn't pardon his son, but privately discussed doing just that. Now they're trying to make the claim that it was Jill Biden who pressured Joe into doing it. It's all lies. This story, according to a Sunday report from NBC News, during the same period when Joe was saying we will not do it publicly and on TV, and everyone in the media was acting like they believed him, they say, quote, the president had discussed pardoning his son with some of his closest aides, at least since Hunter Biden's conviction in June, said two people with direct knowledge of the discussions about the matter. They said it was decided at the time that he would publicly say he would not pardon his son, even though doing so remained on the table. Chris Wallace was right. It's that he was saying, if I lose, I'll pardon him. If not, I won't. And then he would have the DOJ do something, or probably would have pardoned him no matter what. The fact is, the media are not smart people. We know they're not smart people. And I have to imagine some of them at least know for sure they're lying. I absolutely think so. I think most of you do too. When they're sitting there saying, well, look, he said he's not going to do it. And then they act surprised that behind the scenes, he was saying he'd do it the whole time.
I think this is an Occam's razor type situation where the simplest explanation is really what's going on. Joe Biden was always going to pardon Hunter Biden. Well, originally he was going for the sweetheart plea deal that the judge had to throw out. The judge who was ruling in that case had to throw out because he thought it was so ridiculous because it also included that part where he couldn't be convicted for any other crime that he committed in the past decade or so. So I really think that's the situation there. And they couldn't have done it sooner because of the election and the politics involved with that. So it's really as simple as that. Hunter was never going to go to jail. He was either going to get a sweetheart deal or Joe Biden was going to pardon him, and that's what ended up happening. Joe Biden and Hunter Biden are very close. They talk every day. Let's not forget Thanksgiving just happened. I'm sure they were talking about this over Thanksgiving dinner. When Joe Biden was thinking about dropping out, Hunter Biden was one of his close confidants for whatever reason. So we need to understand how close they are.
And I want to stress this too. For someone in the chat asked, can you pardon someone for crimes they haven't yet committed? Yes. What my understanding right now is it's not been challenged, but this is what they just did.
Well, it's the closest thing to the purge we've ever had in the United States. Hunter Biden can go out and do whatever the heck he wants to this evening.
As long as it's a federal crime, he's good.
As long as it's a federal crime.
So in D.C., he can do whatever he wants.
He can't run a stoplight, but he can shoot somebody in the middle of Third Avenue.
In D.C., it's all federal.
Yeah. It's all federal. It is indeed. And
he's just driving around D.C. doing who knows what.
I think the biggest point that we all need to take away from this is to just realize how complicit the media has been, how outrageously and aggressively the president of the United States lied to you. it's just another lesson that you do not hate these people enough. These people will lie to you at every single turn. They will never be honest with you. And at the end of the day, these people hate you. They think that you're childish. They think they need to hold your hand throughout everything and that they are your elites. And that's why there's a two-tiered system of justice.
And the media is not pissed off that Hunter Biden was pardoned. They're pissed off that now we get compilations like this of them defending the president and saying that he said he would not pardon them. And this is like the third or fourth time in the last few weeks that something like this has happened, a complete 180 reversal. I just remember Joe Biden saying, I am not stepping down. And so the media gets their talking points and they go out there and saying he is not going to step down. And then it happens. And now it's this Hunter Biden thing. There's like two other examples. And now they're just angry at him. They can't even defend it anymore.
Let's jump to this.
Joe Biden is sharp as a tack. We were hearing that for ages, you know?
Yeah. We got this story from the Daily Mail. Special prosecutor slams Hunter Biden's bid to dismiss his indictment after Dad Joe's pardon. This is wild because what the DOJ is basically saying is we've seen no pardon. We've heard media reports there's a pardon, but until we get the actual filing, you can't dismiss these charges. Now, some are saying this is just, it's going through the motions. It's making it look like there's a battle. But what I will add to this, which I find very fascinating, is how this backfires. I think the Democrats, Joe Biden, understands there will be some blowback from this in some ways, but they have no choice. They lost the election. Hunter's in trouble. The Burisma scandal stuff is going to come out with Kash Patel coming in. And so the issue now for Joe is that he basically just said the DOJ is corrupt, targeting my son for political reasons. And my response to that is, wow, Joe, I can't believe the DOJ is corrupt and engaging in this political lawfare. Trump has been saying something similar. I guess this proves it.
I guess this proves it. I really do. And this is something that I think is going to give Donald Trump a lot of ammunition. It now is the former outgoing president, who is a hardcore Democrat, who's been one of the most liberal presidents we've ever had, is now saying the DOJ is corrupt to its core, which is something, a talking point all of MAGA has been saying for the last 8 years. And I think this has given us a lot of ammunition to now be able to say, hey, we need to burn this institution to the ground and rebuild something that values the Constitution and the rule of law.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning this is the Merrick Garland Department of Justice. This isn't any Trump loyalist really bringing these charges up.
It's Merrick Garland, the lapdog of Joe Biden.
And remember, they didn't just lose the election. They have lost their blue wall of bureaucracy in D.C. The number of lawyers within the Department of Justice that are writing their resignation letters this second, right now, is astronomical. I think that once we get somebody in that Department of Justice that actually is going to enforce the rule of law and go after the lawfare that has been going after Donald Trump for so long, they're going to have an enormous amount of applications that pour into that agency, because it's just there's an article right now, I saw it in Politico, that DC residents are concerned about their property values going down because of the sheer amount of bureaucrats and government workers that are going to be fired and leaving Washington, D.C. It is going to be that effective.
There should be a fire sale on beautiful houses in Langley and all the surrounding areas. Because
I'm stacking up cash. I'm ready to move.
There are some absolutely beautiful properties, and there should be, I mean, never mind what they're actually going to cut and get rid of, but the idea of getting departments out of Washington is a great idea as well. Yes. Get them out into different parts of the country, get them away from D.C. so that way you do not have a unified political opinion. 96% of the people in D.C. voted for Kamala Harris, for someone that is absolutely unqualified, and they did it only because they're ideologically aligned. So that right there is a massive problem. The entire bureaucracy needs to be cut up, even if you're not actually able to do the kind of significant, cabinet level cuts that I would personally like to see. Move them. Get them out of there. Get them out of D.C. Get them out. There's a whole big country out there. You can send them all over the place. Denver's gorgeous. You can send them all over.
And not only can you send them all over the country, you can send them to places where it makes sense, where the staffing is people that understand it. Why would the Department of Agriculture not be in Kansas, in the center of all of these cornfields?
Iowa's great.
Iowa's phenomenal. Where people who they've said, I just sold my farm, my children are taking over. Let's now have someone who's been a farmer for 70 years. I know a bajillion farmers down. We got Whitworth Farms. You've got Alfie Oaks down in Florida. Go ahead and send it down there in the Sunshine State. These people will be taking care of all of the agricultural stuff.
Send BLM to Reno.
It's also worth noting that when you pointed out like 90% of DC voted for Kamala, we have had generation after generation of Republican staffers and congressmen go and live and vote in Washington, D.C. And the way that town is structured is that you have to kiss up to the lobbyists and the special interests while you are either elected to Capitol Hill or working on Capitol Hill as a staffer, or else your career goes nowhere. If you don't actually build out your relationships with K Street, then you're not going to advance to these cushy jobs. And so we put Republicans in office who sit there long enough and realize they can get very comfortable showing up to all the swanky dinners and just capitulating to the special interests. Then they get their $500,000 a year position at K Street in these lobbying firms, and they slowly become a Democrat. Very few people go up there to change that town. And you know this better than anybody else, that if you go up there and start trying to actually change the city systematically, then you are going to be basically just humiliated as much as possible. You're going to be vilified. You're going to be lied about, all of these different things.
Look at Trump in his first term.
Yeah.
He wasn't even doing anything that ridiculous. When you look at the people he chose for his cabinet the first time around, a lot of people groaned. A lot of populists and a lot of libertarians were like, Bolton is a great example. And they still tried to destroy him and accuse him of being a traitor to this country, working for Russia and, dare I say it on MSNBC, the Soviet Union, which doesn't exist, but these people are never accused of being smart.
And I'll just jump in. The reason why people hated Donald Trump in Washington so much is because he messed up people's long-term career plans. And I'm sure everyone at the table understands this. But in Washington, D.C., you got to think people's career spans are only about 20 years. So normally you're going to work on Capitol Hill for about 10 years, might become a deputy chief of staff, maybe a chief of staff. But then you're going to go spend 2 years a stint on K Street, and you're going to understand what some lobbying company wants you to do. And then you're going to say, because I care so much about this country, I'm going to go back into the government. But really, you are secretly working for K Street still. You will then come in as a chief of staff. You will direct, because the majority of congressmen literally just are handed their vote cards. They have no idea what they're voting on. They're going to go there, and so all your chief of staff is running it. I mean, literally, your staff is policy. And so then you're going to go push the interest of whatever lobbying group you worked for last time. So then when you leave in 6 years, for the last 3 years of your career on Capitol Hill, you will then be a senior partner of one of these K Street firms, and you will make $400,000 to $500,000 a year, and that is people's entire retirement plan. So when Donald Trump came in and wanted to import a lot of the low-level staffers, it messed up a lot of people's opportunities to go and make these opportunities for these K Street lobbying firms, and that is why people hate him so much inside the city.
That's the big problem is the bureaucracy and the fact that the politicians are actually removed from the people that from the people that can actually have repercussions on them. So the people that are making the decisions and the people that are actually making policy and stuff like that, it's people that can't be fired or that can't be booted by the electorate. It's people that are bureaucrats and stuff. So if the people are unhappy with the politician may not get elected. But the people that are working on K Street, like you said, the lobbyists, they're all the same people, and they're going to find another person to work for. And it doesn't matter if it was this guy or that guy, they're going to be doing the exact same job. And that's why people can elect new politicians, but the essentially the same things that were happening before continue to go on. The policy actually doesn't change, and it's necessary to make the kind of cuts that Donald Trump is talking about. And I love the fact that Donald Trump is talking about this, but I don't care if it's Donald Trump. I was a libertarian. I'm a very libertarian kind of guy. So if it was a libertarian that got in there, if Rand Paul was the guy doing it, I'd be backing Rand Paul or Mike Lee or anyone with that kind of interest to actually make real cuts to the government, to make real changes, to put the power back into the hands of the electorate, back into the hands of the people. Because right now, it's all in a bureaucracy.
Rand Paul helps you out a lot.
Rand Paul did help me out.
It's why I love the House way more than the Senate, because you stay up there for 6 years, you solidify incumbency, and the American people have a very short memory.
They do indeed. But Rand Paul's a phenomenal guy. I love him. But I do got to give a big shout out to Donald Trump going for the Libertarians. Going to when he went to the Libertarian Conference. I thought that was a masterful move.
He went and asked.
Yeah, he went and asked. It was a very humble thing to do, and I really appreciate it. And also, he parroted some Vivek Ramaswamy talking points, because for so long we've all said, well, this is the largest union in the country. We can't fire bureaucrats, so what can we do? But Vivek had a very great point. The only way to do it is to do mass layoffs of the federal government for fiscal reasons, and then you can get rid of 80 to 90% of these people who legitimately don't matter. And people who are concerned about that happening, like, well, what's going to happen? Think about whenever the government shuts down, does your life actually change? Aside from being able to go on the Blue Ridge Parkway and speed because there's no park rangers, really, what is
rangers are parked rangers?
Wow, you know what? I support Florida Highway Patrol more than anything you could ever imagine. I back them in a way.
Yeah, the government shutdowns are bad for I think servicemen and women get their paychecks delayed or something like that. Which is sad. Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the other component, which you never see or deal with, is just, what do you care?
Yeah, the 9,000 freaking analysts that work at every single agency, those are the people that have stepped. I mean, when we look at a bunch of Trump's cabinet picks, none of the frontline guys, let's look at the FBI.
Well, I do have some concerns. I don't want to interrupt you, though.
No, go, Tim. This is your show, brother.
Well, my concern is that if Elon and Vivek do get in there and they start gutting a lot of these programs, how are we going to know what happens when you give hamsters cocaine and put them in a fighting ring?
Yeah,
I will personally fund it. I don't just want a percentage of my taxes.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
I want all my taxes.
We're going to Columbia, and we're going to find out. This is going to happen.
No, but this is actually was one of the studies. They were like, why are we making hamsters do drugs and fight each other? I mean, there's probably some like, well, we're wondering what happens to mammals, but it's like, come on.
If they were teenagers doing that, it would be fine, but it's the government doing it.
Okay, look, if they live streamed it, it'd be fine too, but they do it in private. Like, they don't give us any return on our money.
With my tax money, I want to be sitting front row. I want Dana White announcing it, and I want to hear which hamster is going in.
Now, there have been some people pointed out that some of these studies do sound weird, but are for a reason. Like, they might give a certain drug to an animal to see if it increases aggression or decreases because they don't want to test on humans. But my point is largely, so much of our money is going to things that, let's just call it triage. Fine, I get it. You want to take a look at what happens when a certain drug impacts an animal because you want to see if there's a relation to how humans may behave or something like that. I got an idea. First, we stopped sending all of our money overseas to these foreign countries for
gender studies
wars.
In Egypt. I feel like is a really important.
Pakistan was a big one. It was like $11 million. How about we fix our roads, fix our bridges? I got to tell you, if we're sending another $725 million to Ukraine, how about this? You just say, okay, same thing, but it's here, and we're gonna, I don't know, like build some roads.
I'm pretty sure that Ukraine is now located. If my geography is bad, but I think it's Western North Carolina that was just rocked by a massive hurricane. I think they could use some roads there, and the fact that we literally have the 35th Engineering Group, based in North Carolina, who can create a bridge for the military to cross in like about 30 seconds with some of their machines. Yet we could not get a bridge to get people out and get to their homes in Western North Carolina is insane to me.
Legitimately made me angry that, and we were talking about a little bit before the show, the government comes in and says it will take 2 to 3 months for us to fix this road, and a bunch of grizzled vets from the mountains come down and do it in 48 hours.
and Phil, you're going to love this, because I used to actually be, I always am pretty libertarian leaning on a lot of my beliefs that, most things should be legalized. You should allow the people to just figure out what they want. But there was the talking point that I used to back a lot, saying, well, who's going to build the roads? I got my buddy Ellis Pace. I got a significant amount of friends in Western North Carolina, and I watched a bunch of backcountry wise hillbillies literally building roads in record-breaking time, and roads that it's like Roman roads. They're going to exist for all time. Yep. And so I'm just telling you, it made me swing way more libertarian.
Let's jump to this story from the Daily Caller.
I don't want to talk about her.
You don't want to talk about KGP?
She makes me mad, man. My blood pressure's going to go up.
Well, we're going to talk about KGP.
All right, here we go.
Let's go.
She takes a verbal flogging from reporters after Biden. There we go. Biden pardons her. See, I
like that.
Yeah. See,
okay,
it's okay.
Never mind.
Because I do kind of feel bad for her. I got to be honest. Because she's tasked with lying for one of the stupidest administrations this country's ever seen, and even as bad as she is at her job, it's like she's trying to do it, but then behind you, I mean, you've got stumbling, fumbling Joe who can't speak straight, Hunter Biden committing crimes in Burisma, and she's desperately trying to spin something together, but she's going to take the full brunt of this. So one of the most fascinating things that came out of this was when someone said, how deep is the rot at the DOJ? This is a journalist asking Karine Jean-Pierre. She's got no good answers. There is an audio thing right here.
You have said repeatedly yourself since the election, the president has said for months, no pardon was coming. I wanted to ask you, could those statements now be seen as lies from the American people? Is there really a credibility issue here given now this announcement?
First of all, one of the things that the president always believes is to be truthful to the American people. That is something that he always truly believes. And if you see the end of his, I assume that you've read his statement, and you look at the end of that statement, and he actually says that in the first line in the last paragraph, and respects the thinking and how.
Yeah, but blah blah blah. We don't need to hear this. But the problem for her now and this decaying administration is they've probably lied in every possible direction, claiming both things at the same time. And now, I mentioned this in the previous segment, but I'll say it again. The question that the press is asking her is, how deep is the rot at the DOJ? I mean, that's funny because it's no longer denied. Trump has long said it's being weaponized. Trump supporters, many people have said the DOJ is weaponized against the political rivals. And now you've got Karine Jean-Pierre as part of an administration where Joe Biden literally just said it's selective prosecution. And so now that's it. It's confirmed. And she has to answer for that. She can't.
That clip reminded me of sending Daniel into the lion's den with a bowl of salad, trying to convince the lions that it is good to eat and not allowing them to just completely attack her. The two-faced lies coming from this administration. And every single time that they put her out there.
100%. And this is a thing that I think we need to understand about people in the media, people like Karine Jean-Pierre. Their number one thing they hate the most, and this is something you were touching on earlier, Tim, is being embarrassed. And so when they have to come out and they're parroting their normal talking points for the left, which they always do, then all of a sudden the left goes and does a 180. Joe Biden does drop out. He does pardon his son. They do say the DOJ is rotten to its core. It embarrasses them and it makes them upset. And I'm just hoping people can finally start realizing that you do not hate these people enough.
I really think that, like, all evidence says that they have a humiliation kink because all they ever do is embarrass themselves.
What did Tucker Carlson say when some guy said, "What kind of porn do you watch?" And he said, "Oh, humiliation porn. I watch you do it a lot."
We do have a lot of political masochists in the country.
Sincerely, I mean, KJP, how on earth she does her job, like how on earth she can go out there day after day. I would have resigned. There's no way that I would have been able to do what she does and actually have any self-respect. I couldn't.
I kind of feel bad for her. You know what I mean? I mean, as bad as you can for someone who's lying to you every day intentionally. But it's just, you know, look, someone with a goal, with a mission, be it good or evil, they're trying. But she's got to try for Joe Biden. Like, trying to lie for that guy, that's a difficult thing. Oof.
I mean, he pardons his son and then doesn't leave the country. He leaves the continent.
Yeah, he went to Africa.
Africa.
I love that.
He's gone to Africa. Like, also, this is like a pattern. Like, he was in a rainforest like 2 weeks ago after he said something stupid.
Oh, yeah, and then he walked into the rainforest.
He just walked into the rainforest after.
They're like, where's he going?
I know. Like, is he looking for other homes? Like, Hunter wants to stay in the country and Joe Biden didn't pardon himself. He's just going to go over to Africa somewhere. Like, what's he up to? I don't know.
To be fair, her job is to lie and then get called out for it and just try to keep lying and send the media off of the trail of whatever they're trying to accomplish.
I mean, you're right, but you look at the way that McEnany did her job. And look,
that was awesome.
I think Donald Trump is going to be great, but Donald Trump was very loose with facts and he was very, very loose with the way he spoke. And KJP, just when it comes to the way that Biden lies, compared to the way that McEnany would deal with things that Donald Trump said that were skirting the truth or were incorrect or whatever, she was an absolute all-star. McEnany handled the press and handled Donald Trump incredibly professionally, and she generally made the press look bad. KJP, I mean, like I said, I can't imagine how she looks herself in the mirror every day, because not only does she have to go out there and defend some of the most blatant lies, but she does it so badly that you're not buying it. At least McEnany, you were like, okay, yeah, you know, she's got that book, she's pulling up things that people said, and she was going, had all these things marked because she knew what they were going to ask that day. Every single day, she knew what the press was going to ask because she knew what Donald Trump had said. KJP comes out there, and she doesn't have good answers for the things that Joe Biden has said.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think Kayleigh McEnany and her sister Ryan, they're literally once-in-generation talents on handling the media. And the thing that I love about Kayleigh is no matter what Donald Trump would say, and, then the media would start going off like, oh, well, actually, this isn't true, and we think that this was exaggerated. As soon as Kayleigh all of a sudden would hear that, she would say, oh, we're going to page 42. And I loved how she would turn, have her great French tip nails, all of a sudden turn, and then just rip this person a new one, and then bring out receipts, and then it turned out, oh, wait, Donald Trump was telling the truth. It's like literally... when they're saying, oh, the water's turning the frogs gay. It's exactly what's happening. Yeah. Thank God for RFK. We're going to fix that problem.
Republicans have to be prepared with the media.
Yeah.
Democrats have not had to be prepared for the media, and now they are getting a little taste of it, a small taste of it, because she came out there all prepared. KJP could have just walked out there and had basically her time in the sun and just enjoyed it and soaked it up. But even on Capitol Hill, when you are dealing with reporters, they will treat you differently. With the Democrats, they're writing up your bill on the latest legislation that you wrote. And with Republicans, it is taking your words and twisting them wildly out of context and then asking you for comment 5 minutes before they drop it on the wire.
I also feel bad for Jen Psaki because
she was better.
She was better. I actually gave her praise because I'm like, as liars go, she's crafty, right? She's not great, but she does a good job. But she goes to MSNBC, and now it's just,
And now Alex Jones is going to buy her out.
Yeah, she jumped ship to go to a sinking ship, and it's like, oof, man. Well, you can only feel so bad because part of me, there's just the schadenfreude of like, you are evil people, you lie, cheat, and steal, you have disdain for the working class in this country, you have disdain for the population of this country, and this is what happens when you're a bad person, so what can I say?
Yeah, but the big thing is, we got Caroline Leavitt coming in as press secretary, and I think she had a phenomenal idea, and I think it's heavily influenced by Barron. But the big thing is that we're going to start opening seats up for alternative media, kind of the new media, and having a lot. I mean, I hope you'll be there as the Jewish Times reporter.
Yes.
But
Jewish affairs correspondent.
Jewish affairs correspondent. I'm going to make you a name tag for that. But I mean, you think about this. We're going to start having people who are not tied to editors, who are not tied to people who have to push all of their. Because I mean, you think of like places like Timcast, places like Daily Wire. They have their subscription service, so you guys are not going to lose your income. That's going to float you all the time, so you can actually report the truth. And I think having these people in the briefing room is going to be a massive, massive win for the American people.
I mean, that's the goal, is to have that kind of that kind of influence. But I'm curious as to if you guys think that there's going to be an actual change the way that the media treats the incoming Donald Trump administration, because of the fact that there's going to be, I mean, I imagine there's going to be some amount of podcast people, and if I understand correctly, the president has been signaling that they're going to have podcasters as people in the press pool, and if it's no longer dominated by the people, the establishment media or the legacy media, if it's no longer dominated, do you think that the tone and tenor inside the press pool is going to have to change, or do you think it's going to be something where you're going to have like the podcasters and the legacy media, bickering amongst each other or
Here's
competing?
Why it won't, because they will be competing. They will definitely be competing, but the people who are the White House correspondents for these major networks are trying to run their sizzle reel for the show they want to get. Mm-hmm. So Caitlin Collins, who used to work at the Daily Caller, goes in on CNN, becomes the White House correspondent, and she has these clashes. And what does she do? She gets her own show. Jim Acosta, same thing with CNN. They view this as their opportunity to try and catch their wave of legitimacy with the Trump administration.
So I want to follow up to that. It clearly didn't work out for CNN to have Caitlin Collins or Jim Acosta have their own shows. They've watched their viewership go down.
It's not about CNN. It's about the person themselves. They are trying to say, how can I best appeal to the virality of the opportunity. So like if I clash with the president of the United States or the press secretary in the briefing room and I go viral, then the libs are going to love that. And then all of the folks at the station are going to say, this person gets ratings, they must have their own show, or they're generating revenue in some way. So it's all about that individual getting their moment, because then they have contracts, but they'll use it to their leverage. If another network offers them a better position, then they're going to go towards that. And they're going to bring their social media following and their persona over to that network and then continue to clash with the president. So this is an amazing opportunity for people in liberal media to make their mark, because there will be others who get their own show after 2 or 3 years and then hold the administration accountable and get a bump of ratings off of that. And it doesn't mean that long term it's going to work out. I mean, like Newsmax is beating CNN just about every night right now. MSNBC is about to get sold off to something. However, those individuals themselves have made a stamp in their career for themselves, and frankly, they've already made their millions too.
That's absolutely great. But Phil, going back to your point, I do think in the briefing room, when you're going to have kind of the podcasters and people, alternative media in there, and then you're going to have the legacy media in there, I do believe there's going to be, for the first few months, maybe a year, kind of there's going to be like a scene from Mean Girls where they're like, oh, you guys aren't actually from us. You know, you're not one of us. We don't like you that much. But then all of a sudden you're going to see them then be like, wow, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, it's like we just watched a video of RFK with his shirt off at 70 years old doing a backflip off a pull-up bar. And it's like, okay, that's the guy we want in charge. Oh, it was sick.
Wow.
Yeah. It was sick. And he's like, that's the guy
we need a backflip.
Yeah. No, not like a. Not.
He
pulled himself up
all the way backwards.
rolled backwards.
I see.
Yeah, but you see this guy with his shirt off, and he's freaking jacked at 70 years old. It's like, okay, the proof's in the pudding. And I think that's what people are going to start realizing with these podcasters are asking honest questions the American people want to know, and they're starting to get massive rating bumps.
Honest question is, what is in his pudding?
Well, not red dye
It is
number
a
30.
strong
Not red dye
TRT.
number 30. I'll tell you that. I guarantee that guy's getting about two. He's getting a lot of tears.
It's called gear, man. He's geared up.
Who knows? It might be those stem cells from all those fetuses, those late-term abortions that he supports. So
we like RFK. We're pro-life here.
I'm sorry,
but, you know,
keep going.
We
He got a pass for that, but
we welcome
we don't need
people
to,
into the right. We're the big tent party, but
it's
I
just
will
like we
tell you-
forgot he was a Democrat, like, I don't know, 8 months ago. But
Well, let me tell you, but we'll brainwash
the
him.
issue is the Republicans, especially under Donald Trump, are basically saying, we're going to be the big tent party. We're going to welcome people like RFK Jr. in, and then we're going to be the dominant voice in the conversation. Yep. So negotiate where you have to win the bulk of the political power.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I get upset about a lot of times with conservatives. And I'm a hardcore conservative, but we were talking about this earlier. Conservatives are very hard with accepting incremental victories, whereas the left is very happy with it. So for the last 60 years, well before any of us were born, the left started winning incremental victories. They say, oh, we'll win 1 inch this year. And then they do that for 60 years and then look at where our country's at. And it was a slow boil. We're like the frog that's in the saucepan. They're slowly turning up the heat. And so, you know, I'm happy to welcome people onto our party because, one, we might be ideologically different, but this is one thing that I actually like about podcasts. I mean, you can look at Tim, you can look at Joe Rogan, you can anybody. If you force Americans, people with brains, to sit down and have honest conversations where they actually have to not use talking points, they're actually using common sense, then people are always going to start shifting to the right because our side just makes sense. And when you actually start thinking about these things, the left's talking points fall apart. And so when we start welcoming people in like RFK, like Tulsi Gabbard, who have some ideological differences with us, they're now going to have conversations with people who are having very backed up, honest, and common sense backed up conversations. And I think it's going to move them aggressively to the right.
Are you concerned that could water down the message a little bit at all? Because, for example, like, I know Rand Paul, he's a great MAGA guy, but he's against Trump's use of the military for deporting illegal immigrants, for example. So, like, if you keep bringing in Democrats, you know, I'm like a 14-weeker when it comes to abortion, but for many people in the party, they feel like their voice is getting drowned out when they have people like RFK getting appointed HHS secretary. He'll be the most pro-choice Republican-appointed HHS secretary. So it's just, you know, what is your reaction to people saying it's watering down what he's trying to accomplish?
I disagree with that. I vehemently think that there are so many voices in the party. And I mean, we all like RFK, but everyone realized that RFK used to be a liberal. You know, he used to be a Democrat. And so I don't think our message is being watered down. I think our message is being amplified and now is starting to get to different audiences. Because, I mean, the one thing that I love about conservatives is we will not budge. Like this new generation of conservatives, I don't care how many arrows you send at me. I don't care how many articles you write about me. I will not give up. You can call me a Nazi every single time I walk by you. I'm not going to sit there. Oh, you know what? Yeah, gosh, you think I'm a Nazi? I'm going to send $600 million to Ukraine. It's never going to happen. It's never, because we know what we believe. And so I don't think we're going to lose any massive support on our side. I think the only thing that's going to happen is when people start coming into the outer gravity. I mean, I like using libertarianism as a gateway drug to conservatism because it's like, hey,
when you grow up, yeah.
It's like, hey, you know what?
Look, man, I don't call myself a libertarian. I'm libertarian leaning, but the Libertarian Party is insane.
But the Libertarian Party has two directions.
Yeah.
So Chase Oliver, for instance.
That was insane.
Right. But
you think Trump will keep his promise with Ross Albright, the
Yes,
pardon?
absolutely.
Yes.
Albright. I want to jump to this story from Slate.com. Slate. As a member of the media, I, for one, think Kash Patel is a great choice to lead the FBI. Oh, thank heavens. We finally get a sensible liberal over at Slate saying Kash is a great choice. He adds, and I'm not at all saying that because he's threatened to prosecute journalists for having said Donald Trump didn't win the 2020 election. Well, he's not saying it, so there you go. So he says Kash is great. So basically, the narrative they're pushing now is that Kash Patel, who was nominated to be FBI director, which is based AF, is a conspiracy theorist who is going to arrest journalists. MSNBC's Morning Joe, desperate for ratings, played the clip of Kash saying this 3 times, where he was basically saying, he didn't say, I'm going to arrest journalists. He said, those that basically conspired against this country and were defrauding the American people, we're going to investigate you, be it civilly or criminally, whichever one we have to do. And now they're saying, they're conflating it into he's going to arrest journalists for saying Trump didn't win. The best case, if you were a liberal and you want to make an honest, dark interpretation, is that he is going to sue you for defamation. That's their worst case scenario in reality.
I think this makes sense given Kash's background. He helped with the Nunez memo, which helped go through all the Russiagate bullshit that he helped clarify through. And that's why I think a lot of people have a mark on his back from him. And that's why he has a mark for the media, an eye out for the media because of all the filings and Russiagate scandal that he was heavily involved with, helping debunk.
And I mean, the media was in bed with the FBI multiple times throughout the Rush hoax. In fact, it was what compiled the Steele dossier.
Exactly.
It was leaked media reports on purpose from the FBI to the media to compile the Steele dossier to get a FISA warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. And that is just one example, in my opinion, of what we know about. Like, I don't think they just came up with that. I think that that has probably been used in the past. And so when he's talking about holding these people accountable, that's what he's referring to. The fact that the media was used as a conduit to hijack our legal system to pursue a political opponent. That absolutely needs to be prosecuted.
100%. And I mean, even going as far back as Watergate. I mean, they wanted to get the president out to put in a moderate establishment candidate in as they put him in as vice president. And that's why they tried to get rid of him, because that guy was a freaking populist. And honestly, he's pretty based.
To the fullest extent of the law. Like every single violation of the law, I want the DOJ to come down like a ton of bricks. And I don't care if it's a conservative or a Republican or a Democrat. If you've broken the law, I want the DOJ to annihilate you to the fullest extent of the law.
Accountability and equality under the law.
100%.
No more of this. This is what Kash brought up on this show. 2 Antifa lawyers giving up Molotov cocktails during riots in New York, and they wash away the charges and say, okay, we're gonna give you a sweetheart deal. And then you got J6ers, some who are still in solitary confinement without charge.
Yep.
So look, if you want to say the J6ers deserve to be in jail, my response is if they committed a crime, they should go to jail.
Sure.
And so should the liberals and the leftists who commit crimes. They should go to jail as well. And so when we got the 5, we call it M29. Remember M29, the insurrection in front of the White House where they forced the president into an emergency bunker, set fire to St. John's Church, and firebombed the White House grounds. Those people should be in jail. Equality under the law. We don't have that right now, and I hope Kash brings it.
I absolutely agree. I was there on January 6th. Now, anybody who was there assaulting a police officer, I think that's a crime. Yeah. But the majority of people, the doors were open. You literally had Capitol Police officers walking people through, and those people are sitting there rotting in jail. I have talked to several ATF agents in Florida who are upset about their job because they were having to go knock on doors to serve warrants and take people's guns away because they were in the Capitol on January 6th. Yeah. I mean, it's an absolutely ridiculous 2-tiered system of justice, and it's wrong.
Yeah. Madison, do you have any insight to how other members of Congress, Republicans, your former colleagues, felt about January 6th? And
I do, yes. There were a lot of people who were really upset about it. That they just thought that so many people, they didn't really know how to feel about it because one, we were all on the floor at the time. I was about to start the debate to contest the election in Wisconsin, and we were all on the floor. All of a sudden, you hear everybody's radios from all the Capitol Police officers start going off, buzzing all around, and then you see these guys get really straight backed, and it just kind of changed the feelings in the room. Started looking around. I had Catherine Treadwell, my deputy chief of staff, in there with me, and I just kind of whispered over to her, "Hey, can you figure out what's going on?" So she went over and then was kind of listening in, and when they came back, the report was, "Hey, someone has gotten into Statuary Hall." Obviously, I think it's just some quick, fast guy who juked out a Capitol Police officer and he's running into the thing. Then all of a sudden we hear, "Oh, we're evacuating the House floor." And so, and this was one of the funniest things that happened because when I got into office, it was during COVID, and so they had a very shortened introduction process for all the new members. And so normally they would take you through all the things that you have to do, all the procedures within the Capitol. And so when they said we were taking the emergency evacuation route, we all started rolling out, and then we got to it because we didn't know what was going on. They just said, "Oh, there's like 6,000 people about to come into these doors."
Did you fear for your safety?
Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. Not once. It was not a scary situation.
Yeah, but AOC says she had to knock on her door.
That's not
she
true.
Thought that
That's not true. That's wrong. That's a lie. It's ridiculous.
It is a lie.
I got to just finish the story about the evacuation route. So then we're going. I get to the evacuation route. It is 7 flights of stairs straight down. And I get there, and I had a couple guys like, "Oh, we'll carry you." I was like, "No, that's not it." So then I went and rolled around, and then a couple of my members of Congress came with me, some really good guys. And then that's when I actually got to go into the crowd, and I realized, and there were some troublemakers.
You went out to the crowd.
Oh, I did, yeah.
While you were
because
leaving.
I had to go down to the elevators. There were some troublemakers up in the front, but literally people just, it was a calm group of people who just got out of my way. I was able to roll right through. It was no problem. And so it was blown completely out of proportion. It obviously, and I agree, anybody that broke the law should be prosecuted under the law. I hope cash, because this is the problem that we've had with Republican administrations since I've been paying attention to politics in 2000. When Democrats do something wrong, we just say, "Oh, well, we're going to be the bigger person and we're just going to move on from it and it's going to be okay." This has given them a license and an expectation that there are no consequences for their actions. And so I genuinely believe that, as you were saying, Phil, the hammer needs to come down of people being held accountable on both sides. I'm not saying it should just be on the left. The hammer needs to come down so people realize, hey, if you break the Constitution, if you actively work against the commander-in-chief like is going on within the intel agencies right now, or when Mark Milley is having private meetings with the general in China, these things are not things that should be swept under the rug. You should go to jail for them instantly.
Did you see that Glenn Beck clip where he was talking to Kash Patel about the JFK assassination, and he was bringing up some of the widely accepted premises, and Kash is like, "Well, you're talking to someone who's seen the actual file," and that was very interesting.
Badass.
That was very interesting to me. And then I think Joe Rogan straight up asked Trump, "Why didn't you release it?" And Trump's answer was that there were some people at the time who felt as if it wouldn't be in our best interest to release it, but if I get reelected, I will release the full file. I'm very excited to see if that comes to fruition.
There is, in my opinion, there is nothing that is 40 years old, that is over 40 years old, that will have any kind of significant impact on modern America. So it should all be declassified. And any future there should be some kind of law passed where any future declassification, there's a sunset on all classified documents.
But I don't know. I don't know if I agree on the 40-year thing. I agree on everything else, but I think it's going to have to be a case-by-case basis. There are probably documents pertaining to Iran that go back 40 years, which could have an impact.
Well, and this is one thing. If there's no one that they are continuing to protect within these sealed documents. These people are all either very close to death or they're dead. We're not trying to send people to jail for what happened. What they are doing is they are protecting the institution of the intel communities because there was a coup that happened. They shot the president in the freaking head.
Absolutely. I wanted to provide an update on the confirmation, the votes for Kash Patel. The votes that would likely be holding it up is Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski from
2 Democrats.
Well, two moderate so-called Republicans. But the interesting thing here is that Susan Collins hasn't been a hard no. She says, I don't know Kash Patel. I'd heard his name, but I don't know his background, and I'm going to have to do a lot of work before reaching a decision on him. So it's not a no so far. Madison, I wanted to ask you, what do you make of the picks so far, and Susan Collins seeming to be open to confirming something? But
well, that is really good news. I know Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski are probably the most ardent and flaky people for our confirmation hearings that we're going to go through. There's some sensible Democrats who I think are in swing states who actually could be kind of and I say sensible Democrats in jest, but who are in swing states where they realize, man, Trump gained a lot of ground in this state. I have an election coming up in the midterms. I think those people could actually be persuaded to vote for the majority of the picks, probably not the most hard right ones. But when you start looking at what Lisa Murkowski and Lisa are and Senator Collins are doing, my entire thought process on that is, one, there is a political mandate that's been given. Give Donald Trump the cabinet he needs to be able to execute it. And so I think that we're going to have probably 80 to 90% of our people get through.
And I mean, I have to ask, you're a former congressman. You have as much MAGA bona fides as anybody else that he's picked for his cabinet. Has Trump tried to tap you for anything, or what's going on?
I will just say this. Anything the president wants me to do, I will happily serve. If he wants me to carry donuts into the office for press briefings, I will happily do it. Whatever this man needs to be able to save our country, I'm happy to do it. If it was a dream scenario, if I could have anything, I'd want to be director of the ATF. I think there's a...
It wouldn't be donuts. It would be McDonald's.
It'd be McDonald's. That's 100% right. Yeah, I don't know how RFK would feel about it. But, man, when I saw the picture of RFK sitting there eating McDonald's, I literally thought it was just one of those situations where there's some drug guys there sitting there, and they're like, hey, do drugs in front of us so we know you're not a cop.
Because as far as these picks go...
I think he ate the McDonald's. We talked about this, and people, everyone's memeing like he didn't eat it, and I'm like, he's not a crazy person. He probably had a cheeseburger.
Yeah, and he even made a statement when Donald Trump was working at McDonald's that having a cheeseburger and fries is one of the most American things you can do. Yeah. And then he was saying we should just do it in beef tallow, not in seed oil.
Yeah, and if you watched, he fried a turkey in beef tallow this past weekend,
which I thought was freaking sick. But I will tell you, especially if I was to be able to get ATF, there's so many changes that you can make. One, all the frontline boots on the ground guys would be extremely happy because I would have them actually start going after criminals. If you want to bring heat-seeking missiles into our country through the southern border, if I was in charge, the ATF is going to be there to take you out right away. And then also, I mean, the encumbersome stuff that they impose on gun store owners. I mean, there's so many redundant pieces of paperwork. People will come into these guys, and it's a massive fear for gun store owners because these ATF, just lackeys will come in and say, well, you know what, when you were doing this serial number, this 6 looks a whole lot like a G, and so that's incorrect. So we're now going to take your license. Your entire livelihood's gone. Wow. Also, another thing that is really freaky with the ATF is they require all gun stores to keep records in perpetuity of everything they've ever done. I mean, I know several gun stores in my hometown that have been there for 20, 25 years. And then if you ever close down shop, you then have to send the physical paperwork to the ATF on your own cost. 25 years of paperwork being sent is a massive, massive cost. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. But also, they effectively now have a gun registry of who owns every single firearm in the country. And so there's just some things that need to be done. Also, the ATF needs to be a convenience store. Literally, I'm going, if I got director of that, I would open up a quick service place where you can come in, you can grab a beer, you can grab whatever you need to do, a home brew, and you can buy, a Benelli 12 gauge whenever you want.
There are, in fact, Walmarts that function as such. You can go to Walmart, you can pick up the milk, cigarettes, booze, and guns. That's Walmart in the right places. But I think you make a great point about
Buc-ee's.
We make the joke. Buc-ee's is great too. we make the point about how the ATF should be a convenience store, right? Well, in all seriousness, though, the ATF should be stopping terrorists on the border who are trying to bring in explosives and dangerous weapons and not bothering some small business in Tennessee or something.
Not peaceable gun owners. I mean, my biggest problem with the ATF is they are focusing on, political rivals. They're knocking on doors of January 6ers. They're doing things like this. But at the end of the day, there are actual crimes that do need to be investigated. If we've got Venezuelan gangs taking over buildings and they have hand grenades, I've got a problem with just random people having hand grenades in the country they can just throw into a store. That's the kind of stuff we want to be hunting. hunting. And then all these freaking analysts that exist inside of Washington, D.C. and the Capitol, when people are upset, well, if you do all this deportation, who's going to go handle all the farms? The number one, well, they need to get another talking point from when they tried to continue slavery. But also, my number one thing is like, well, I've got 9,000 analysts we can fire from the ATF because they're not doing anything, but they can
They need
go.
jobs.
Yeah, I'm telling you, all the ex-federal employees, they're going to need jobs.
Let's jump to this story from ABC News. Mexican authorities broke up 2 migrant caravans heading to the U.S., activists say. Some migrants were bused to southern Mexico and others have been offered transit papers. This story broke over the holiday week, and I just find it so funny that Donald Trump threatened these massive tariffs, and then instantly 2 massive migrant caravans who had been tracking the news have just seemingly disappeared. And Trudeau came down and had conversations with Trump where I think Trump joked about annexing Canada or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't.
Tariffs work.
Well, it's not so much the tariffs work; it's that Trump is he's a great businessman. He knew, and this is the funny thing, when there was that viral video where it's like a phone call and Trump is saying, "I told Putin if you invade Ukraine, and I told Xi if you invade Taiwan, I will nuke you." And it's like, I don't know if they believe me, maybe 5%, but that's enough, right? And that is what Trump is. They believe it just enough. Trump goes to them and says, "I'm going to put these tariffs on you. You think I care? Give me what I want. Stop the illegal immigration." And Mexico said, "Done." Because they looked at Trump and Trump said, we will play a game of chicken and you will lose.
Which makes Kamala Harris's position as border czar even more comical.
Yeah.
That she was given charge and the White House said she's only supposed to be dealing with the countries of origin where they're causing migrants to come through Mexico and into the United States. And Trump makes one phone call, and before he is in office, the guy is not elected yet. And they've already started showing signs that he is the current president of the United States.
It's incredible. And he just said that, okay, all the hostages in Palestine need to be returned before my first day in office, or it's going to be hell to pay. I mean, that's the thing that I love about him is so many people, and there's a massive fear. I think everybody can recognize this. There's a massive fear of the unknown. If you know there's a consequence that's going to come for something, it's like when your parents, you did something wrong, but they're not telling you what your punishment is. That's worse than the actual punishment. It happened to me when I got my first speeding ticket, first of many.
When you were 6.
But the fear of the unknown is what keeps people in check. And that's the thing that I love about Donald Trump is these foreign nations don't know what Donald Trump's going to do. Is he going to send a mean tweet at you and say, my button's bigger than yours? Is he going to put tariffs on you? Is he going to bomb Soleimani? Is he going to nuke you? What is he going to do? They don't know. And so it makes them afraid because normally in politics say, oh, they're going to do a proportional response to this. So if we make this action, that's the cost benefit ratio is enough for us. And that's what Donald Trump does. He throws that entire algorithm out the window and says, you don't know what I'm going to do. And when we're talking about how great of a businessman he is, I know so many people who are starting businesses today just because they know the economy is going to do so well. I mean, like literally, there's a guy who's trying to create an Amazon competitor called Rivly, which is a direct-to-consumer marketplace, just like Amazon, but it's literally just American-made stuff because he knows we're going to onshore so many businesses. I know guys because of how friendly he's been to crypto, who they just started, I think it's called Sido, a new company for indexing so we can create more blockchain technology. And it's these incredible ideas who people are literally just creating jobs because Donald Trump was elected. He's not even in office yet. He hasn't changed the economy yet, but people are just being like, we're going to create American jobs because we know it's going to be great.
He's so
the left ignores the fact that like what an administration signals to the broad economy matters significantly. Like if you're telling people that are entrepreneurs or telling businesses, hey, look, there's going to be regulations and there's going to be this and there's going to be that hurdle and the profits that you make, we're going to tax at X. And if you make too much money, you're going to tax. It disincentivizes people from actually taking action in the real world. Donald Trump being elected means that there's going to be significantly less interference in the market, and it makes for a good environment to start businesses and to take economic risk. Because if you're going to spend the money and take a risk economically, you want to be able to make as much of a return as you can. And if you don't have that kind of guarantee, or if you don't have the sense that the administration is going to be friendly to business, you're not going to want to take that risk. Sorry, Elaad.
It's okay. I was just going to say Trump so effectively uses his presidential bully pulpit where he's effectively able to threaten other countries and get things done before he actually has to do official acts to affect change. Mm-hmm. So what does this mean? It means that he said he wants peace in the Middle East before he comes to office. There's already a truce in Lebanon. There's a ceasefire between the Israelis and Lebanon. He only needs to make threats of tariffs against Canada and Mexico. And now you see pictures of him sitting next to Justin Trudeau, all smiling and everything. He says he wants to be very hard against the border, and he won't cooperate with Mexico unless they effectively stop the flow of migration. And now we're seeing them actually put their foot down in Mexico and stopping the flow of migration. So
Great.
Trump's he gets to do these things, and it's amazing how effective he is without actually having to even be in office yet.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
He just, as soon as he won the election, then we started hearing everybody was chilling out.
Yeah.
The wars, like there's conversations that certain groups are calling for peace, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then they try claiming it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. But certainly Donald Trump has already gotten on the phone and he started making these changes. The response from Democrats has been to say, I thought Trump said he was going to end the war in 24 hours.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Why has he only initiated peace talks so far? It's like,
he hasn't even taken office, so the 24-hour clock hasn't even started, and he's already.
No, he did say within winning the election 24 hours, I'll get
Okay.
on the phone and I'll end this war. He did say that. But look, this is what they always do. They claim that Trump is speaking 100% literally on everything he's doing. There was this really funny post where, who was it? It was J.D. Vance, I think. Some reporter wrote a fact check saying that, J.D. Vance said something like, my kids are ravenous. They eat like a dozen eggs a day. And the reporter wrote, it would be impossible for his 2 children to consume 24 eggs per day. He's talking about hundreds of eggs per month. And he was like, I was just being hyperbolic. I was exaggerating. Like, if I said I was so hungry I could eat a horse, I mean, I'm literally going to eat a horse. But this is what the media does. You say something like Trump says, I'll get it done in 24 hours. And they go, okay, clock's ticking. And he's like, well, I didn't mean literally. I meant I'm going to get done fast.
Yeah, again, you just can't hate these people enough because literally the Democrats can come out and blatantly lie to the American people, and they'll say, "Oh, well, if you look at it through the context of this political quagmire we have, it's a beautiful thought they had when they said that we want to chemically castrate children." And then it's just insane. But then when we say, oh, we're going to end the war in 24 hours, like, well, it's been 2 hours and only 6 countries have stopped attacking each other.
That will happen too. Like, they will do their fact check there. Caroline Levitt put out something the other day that was really interesting where she got an email from a reporter. It was either like Washington Post or New York Times that said there is a certain location in the United States where they have had racist things spray painted on the sides of buildings. Now, nothing is directly tying this to Donald Trump, but it occurred after his election. So does the Trump campaign have anything that they want to say in relation to the fact that these events are occurring, or basically accept any responsibility? The mental gymnastics that these journalists have to get to a point where they have no story and have to try and conjure up something to try and link things together is just wildly outrageous.
This is because we got rid of bullying in the United States.
We need to bring back
I think there's a lot of reasons that when people are being aggressively bullied, it's a problem. But
exactly.
But I will tell you, there is some sense of holding social norms and holding people to account that has been lost.
But let me clarify too, because the left always takes bullying to its most extreme form.
Right.
And I don't think bullying may be the right word. Shame.
Yeah.
Shame.
Exactly.
Shaming. That is a much better word. And I would change my word to shame.
And the reason for that is the more you have society that will police itself, the less actual involvement from the government you need. 100%. You don't need police to go ahead and round people up if people are too embarrassed to misbehave. If you look at the way that people behave in Japan, there's a lot of streamers that are going to Japan, or that have been going to Japan and to South Korea lately, and they're being a nuisance. And the people in Japan and the people in South Korea are not taking it anymore. When they do get arrested, they get significant fines. And then a lot of times they don't get arrested because there are people just normal people that will stop them and tell them to knock it off. The reason that works is because the society doesn't approve of these things, and that means that you don't need to have police running around arresting people all the time. The more you have society police itself, and the more you shame people for misbehaving and behaving in ways that are unacceptable in public and behaving in ways that are unacceptable for your family or whatever, the less you need government involvement in people's lives.
And I think a great point to this is anybody who shoots often. You go to any kind of shooting range, whether it's indoor or outdoor. you don't see a lot of arguments on gun ranges because you know that there are extraordinary consequences to it.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like that's just the same thing in the South. You don't see a lot of people doing home invasions in the South because you know there are extreme consequences to it. When there are sheriffs in Southwest Florida, my favorite sheriff in the world, Carmine Marcino, like he literally said after a big hurricane, he's like, I'm just going to encourage you guys, probably don't want to go looting in Southwest Florida because you don't know what's waiting behind the door, and I don't want to have to do the paperwork of booking you, so I'm encouraging my citizens to shoot you.
I want to stress too with the gun range thing. In fact, I see quite the opposite of arguments. I see unity. And
Yes.
I went to XCal range. It's a range in I think it's in Leesburg.
I've heard of XCal.
Yeah, they're pretty well known because they have full auto and you can bring it in. And I'm standing there with my friends, and we went to fire some weapons, and yes, full auto. And I saw there was a black gentleman and a woman laughing and smiling and shooting with their weapons. And then just one booth over, there were some Arabic individuals in what appeared to be more Arabic outfits. There were some Indian individuals. There were some Asians that were there, and there were white people. And I said, everybody was smiling and laughing and getting along. And then there was one, like some Latino guys were asking the black guy about his gun, and he was explaining it to him. And I was like, look at this. People of all different backgrounds and creeds coming together and smiling at a gun range, having fun, shooting targets with big guns.
Full metal melting pot.
And
Metal melting.
This is the best comms director in the world. And so this is actually one reason why I am so big on culture and traditions in America. Again, you know, tradition's not the preservation of it's not the worship of ashes, it's the preservation of fire. But this is something like, I'm not the biggest football fan in the world, but I think that the Super Bowl should be celebrated every single year because it's shared activities that bring people together. It's the reason why I think smoking cigars can save the entire country, because if everyone's sitting there smoking a cigar, you are now locked into a 25-minute conversation, and then all the pre-recorded responses. Tim, go ahead.
I was going to say, you're right on the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
If everybody has a shared cultural identity and understanding, and I don't mean like absolutely, like you can be a Muslim in Dearborn, Michigan, but you're like, hey, the Super Bowl's on. It's something that we all get
We're
together.
all going to get together and watch.
It's not a religious thing. It's just a cultural thing where we enjoy it. That's good for this country.
Yeah,
it's good for any country.
It's the same thing. I mean, but you look at it, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot of those things in the United States. And I think we should encourage and foster more of those and help encourage those. I mean, whether it's the Victoria's Secret fashion show, whether it's the freaking girls, high schoolers going to prom. I mean, who doesn't see a bunch of high schoolers at a nice restaurant when you're going out on a date with your wife, and you see them all dressed up going to prom, and you don't stop by and be like, oh man, I hope you guys have a great night. It's going to be so much fun for you. It's just a shared activity where everyone can be all unified in one thing. And when you see people doing something that you enjoy doing, that you know a lot about, whether it's Latinos and black guys at a gun range showing each other their weapons, it humanizes one another. And so I think that's something we need to do in America, is to foster more tradition and cultural.
Let's jump to this story from the post-millennial chaos at MSNBC as Rachel Maddow furious at Morning Joe hosts for meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, according to a report. Rachel Maddow is pissed at them, and as are other presenters like Chris Hayes and Ari Melber. Not only that, but MSNBC is, once again, suffering its worst ever ratings, hitting a key demographic viewership of 38,000.
Oh.
So it's funny because Rachel Maddow is getting paid $25 million to talk to nobody. So I don't know what's going on with MSNBC, why it matters. But I will say for us, what matters is this is the downward spiral. You got Keith Olbermann came out and said Rachel Maddow sold out her principles for $25 million. That's wild to me. And now she's going after Morning Joe because they're trying, in fear, I might add, but to try and apologize, I guess, to Trump for having been so just nasty and to being liars. But this is it. We're watching the internal combustion, I suppose, of these lunatics who were willing to say anything for cash.
I think they're doing a little good cop, bad cop action. Joe and Meek are desperate for access to Donald Trump. So I think that's why they went to go kiss their rings, because they want some late night phone calls from Donald Trump like Maggie Haberman gets from the New York Times. They want Maggie Haberman treatment.
Do you know who held Matt Gaetz's congressional seat in Florida's 1st congressional district in the early 2000s?
Joe
Scarborough.
Joe Scarborough.
That's insane. No.
Yep.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Joe Scarborough.
Joe Scarborough.
Isn't that something? And his dad was also like a career politician. I forget the entire history.
Joe donated to Gaetz at one point early on. And so the back and forth that this guy has done is just staggering.
Well, he's the one who initially brought Trump into the fold early on in the first Republican primary that Trump ran in. They used to bring him on all the time, just like the people at The View did. They helped platform Trump and make him into a candidate at the beginning and for his budding political career. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, just for Americans who aren't steeped in political culture and media sense, just so you understand, 38,000, if you had 38,000 people in a room, that's a ton of people. But like literally on this Instagram story post, I think I get 300,000 views on average. If these guys are getting 38,000 on MSNBC and they're being paid $25 million a year, it's insane. The math does not make sense.
More than that, you get those numbers in the key demographic. Most of the people watching at MSNBC are 65 plus and not advertiser friendly, not an advertiser friendly age
Absolutely.
group.
Such an enormous shift to independent media, to social media platforms, and also the plurality of these platforms allows for the competition. And I don't think we've necessarily seen this yet, and actually Tim might have a different opinion on that because I'm not in the streaming business, but if you get more and more that are competing with each other, my hope is that their standard of cracking down on certain types of speech is going to allow for more free speech, because when you allow the free market to have so many different options as opposed to one individual having a monopoly, it allows for many people to choose from those different options. I think that's what you see on X.
They tried to fight the corporate press, the media. They attacked YouTube. YouTube attacked back. And they were hoping to shut down shows like this. But it didn't matter. And I've explained this quite a bit. It is not an issue of you've got a group of Gen Z that one day saw the light and watched a YouTube video and went, oh, wow, Trump was right. It's that the younger generations are already feeling these politics or thinking these things. And as they get older and move into the political space, they already are more inclined to agree with a show like Joe Rogan's or ours or, Dan Bongino, for instance. So when they try to suppress and censor this at the corporate level, like Google or whatever companies, it works for a period, but eventually cable news loses all its money and the advertisers step in and they're like, why can't we advertise on the biggest shows? And YouTube eventually has no choice but to back off and reduce the censorship, because this is where the conversation is going to happen. They have no choice at this point but to say, this is the direction the country is going. Trump won. He won the popular vote. The Republicans won everything. And the reason they lost is because they tried so desperately to engage in this weird censorship, which created this. What ended up happening was you had the authentic world where it was regular people having real debates. And then you had the fictional Democrat cult liberal media world where it was manufactured and everybody hated it. And it blew up in their faces. We are moving now into this new era following the podcast presidency, they call it. Ad rates are already starting to go through the roof. We're hearing from there's big networks that are buyers. For a long time, they said everybody wants TV. Then it started shifting. Well, podcasts are doing really, really well. Now it's not even podcasts. It's YouTube specifically.
Yes.
The big networks are saying, we don't really care about Apple, Spotify, and other platforms anymore. We want YouTube access because we want video components. So Spotify says, we're going to make it so you can watch videos on Spotify now. And then YouTube went, oops, because 10 years ago, YouTube had the vodcasting monopoly. And what did they do? Started banning people and shutting it down in fear and panic. Now they regret that, I bet.
Well, I imagine they do, but at the same time, when you have like Spotify trying to do what YouTube is doing, I mean, they started picking up the podcasts because YouTube was banning people and saying, hey, we don't want this on our platform, which is, I mean, obviously it was a blunder, but that's why it's good to have the ability to have markets and have other competition. Spotify started picking people up. Joe Rogan, which was he was the biggest podcast on YouTube, and then he went over to Spotify. And I understand it wasn't an exclusive deal and stuff, but at the same time,
at first it was.
Yeah. So for a little while, YouTube's like, oh, what the heck are we gonna do now? And it made Joe Rogan a lot of money. But that's why it's important to have multiple places where you can actually go for these different ideas and stuff. So the fact that the mainstream media has a unified voice, it didn't matter because you had places like YouTube and because you had places like Spotify to actually present this stuff. And there was a time where the mainstream was trying to squash this stuff. Right after January 6th, Parler got completely and totally boned because they were all their servers were on Amazon, and Amazon helped cut them out, and you had Gab has a problem with some of their user base being a little too edgy and stuff like that. But the fact that there are options, it's a big deal, and it matters.
I think Ben Shapiro was talking about how they're having to really pour a lot of infrastructure into their website and trying to drive people off of some of these excess platforms like YouTube, because they feel as if there could come a point where they have put so much stock in these platforms that if they completely just yank it away, then they're left with nothing. And so they want to drive people back to their website individually. And one of the other, and I want to get Tim's opinion on that too, but the other thing too, I was reading a book about how to essentially build up your listener base as well. This author, I think his name is Graham Cochran, was suggesting that you should not focus on building up your social media, but rather your email list, because people don't change their emails, but you don't know what's going to happen to a particular platform. If Twitter gets bought out and changed, then that was great for us, but for the libs, they're
it was great for them too, but they were mad.
For everybody.
Yeah. So the meme about the left is, they're not mad that they're being censored. They're being mad that you're no longer censored.
Exactly.
Which is why they thought it was a bad thing. I completely agree. But because of that purchase, a lot of people left that social media platform. So this person's arguing that you basically have to create your own little bubble of infrastructure, build up your following on the website, and people don't change their email addresses. They might go off of a platform like Parler, whether if we want it to stay around, that's great, but it might just wake up and it's not there the next day. You don't know what's going to happen to it, but it's essentially like your mailing address. You always have some form of a mailing address. You might switch your email address, but it's far less often than if you move off of a social media platform.
I do think there's something to say about originally mainstream media got a lot of their credibility from being the only ones around. They were the only news sources. Sure. They had a monopoly, and now we had different social media platforms allowing different types of accessibility. So now that's not what the mainstream media is good for. But the thing that I still think that they have that other podcasts don't is access. They have access to high-ranking political officials. They have access to different representatives. Madison, maybe you could tell us a little bit about this, but I don't know. It seems for every scoop, even from Republican reps, it always goes to Politico, New York Times, Axios. It's never really going to the Daily Wire. It's never really going to Timcast. So it's still in the Republican ecosystem of elected officials. They go to MSNBC. They'll still do some Fox, and Fox will still get some breaking news. But Trump talks to Maggie Haberman from the New York Times all the time, and Axios. I read Axios' news because that's where they're getting a lot of these quotes from.
It's generational. So right now, we've had Kash Patel on this show, I think, 3 times or more? 3 times? 4 times. And he's fantastic. We're huge fans, and I consider him a friend of the show. This world is changing. The people that are entering this administration, we know many of them. And this is where that access is moving into our space, and you're going to get real, authentic conversations. Maggie Haberman and these people at the Times or whatever, they're plastic people. They're going to call
the Republicans give them access.
Of course, and they shouldn't. But but it doesn't matter what I think they should or shouldn't do, because it will change. And in the future, it's not going to be, let's say in 15, 20 years, it's no longer going to be like the New York Times calling a person like Kash Patel and saying, we need a quote on this. It's going to be Kash Patel being like, hey, can I pop on the show and talk about a thing that's going on? And it's going to be more authentic, raw conversations where your political leaders, your law enforcement leaders are going to sit down 2 hours raw and be like, dude, I will tell you exactly what is happening, and you judge for yourself if you think I'm telling the truth. But when you put someone in that position, like Donald Trump talking for 3 hours with Rogan, you see the authentic conversation. You can see where Trump is like, maybe I don't want to answer this or whatever, and he tries, and you get it. But this is why Kamala Harris couldn't do it. It's why the shows she went on was a deeply controlled system where she said, you come to me. And then you had that moment where Hannity said that staffers were back there being like, we got to go. Like, we're out of time. That's all over. We are moving into the podcast era, authenticity.
Well, just to touch on your question earlier, but I will say one big part that is changing is guys, especially when I came into office and a lot of people started following and coming into office. I mean, we would break stories to our friends versus going to the Times or going to at Politico and things like that, because we know that that's the future and these are our friends. We want to help our friends. That's one thing that I love about the conservative movement is we have created an ecosystem where, I mean, obviously the establishment came really hard after me, but I didn't lose a single friend who's like in the conservative movement.
We also use the legacy media to our advantage too, because in DC, here's another thing that people like the Times and the Washington Post are now having to deal with is that Republicans like the hit pieces that are being written against them a lot of the time. And the way that you are supposed to harness that, it is essentially earned media. If you get a hit piece written by the New York Times or somebody like that against a Republican, because everybody knows that the Times and the Post are against Republicans. So you are presented with a gift from the legacy media. And if you don't take that and start fundraising off of it immediately, then you have just wasted an enormous opportunity. There were headlines that Madison would get sometimes that we would get, and I would read the hit piece and be like, this is pretty decent. We ought to send out an email blast on this.
Exactly.
We'd call the reporter and I'd say, so at what point does this cross the line and become an in-kind contribution to the campaign? Honestly. And so Republicans need to adapt because the environment has changed from where it was a decade ago. It's not the end of your political career if you get a bad article written about you. It is an opportunity. And if you take that opportunity and understand the media landscape now and utilize it, then you can profit off of their idiocy.
That's really smart, especially considering how the whole of the conservative world understands that the existing legacy media has nothing but contempt for them. Correct. And any opportunity that they can get to slime you, they're going to take. So for the conservatives that are just the average news consumer that's conservative, they know the New York Times is not going to be treating conservatives fairly. So it's a badge of honor now to say, look, they're running hit pieces on me. That means I'm effective. You should give me money.
Exactly. One of the number one things that I think is my favorite that's kind of becoming very popular now is judge me by my enemies. Like if I judge people by their enemies. Like if you're not hated by the deep state, we were joking about this earlier. If you haven't been served a subpoena from the federal government, I really have a hard time trusting you.
I've never been.
But going back to your question, but DC is kind of slow to move because there are so many long-term career politicians in office still. And I will tell you, this is how leadership on both sides would kind of handle people is, if you were doing something incorrect or something bad that the leadership did not like, they would go to Fox, they'll go to some of these big name corporations, the legacy media, and say, hey, do not have this person on for a little while. But then if they disobey, they would be like, oh, okay, well, we're going to start sending people to do interviews with your competition. And they'll say, you don't want to have, you want to break our request? Okay, cool. We're going to start sending people to CNN to do things right when you're doing it so that it'll draw viewership over that way.
Trump does that too.
Trump does that often.
He masterfully would do it whenever there were, like during the primaries, when they're having 8 people up there trying to out Republican each other. He holds a rally that draws 3 times as much of a viewership as the actual debate would. So it's like 8 second place people fighting over each other to get the runner-up position in the primary election, or you could watch the de facto Republican nominee give a speech to his supporters. Which one are you going to go with?
I mean, just like I said, he could do that. He could do that with big things like rallies or whatever. But he can derail conversations just by tweeting while it's happening. He could just go ahead and say, well, I'm going to go ahead and comment on it. And then the people that are actually involved in the conversation, they might have to completely change their narrative or whatever because of what Donald Trump said. That's really, really, really impressive. And whereas Donald Trump has a unique bully pulpit, it's not like that is impossible for other people. If you tweet something out, the people that are, that understand the context or whatever, they will actually change what they're doing if by depending on what you're saying, especially in DC when it comes to lawmakers or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. What enormous power too.
Yeah,
to be able to just use that leverage. And even out of office, there was a certain point where Trump had been totally written off back right after January 6th and things like that. The small group of people that were around him helped rebuild that influence, and the ones that were around him, even at that very beginning, were the loyal ones that helped him rebuild this team and take over.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really optimistic. I know we got 50 days. Okay, we got December. In 3 weeks, we are going to be at AmFest live on stage for the last show of the year, and it's the way that the calendar.
Oh yeah,
I know it's going to be epic, and we're talking to them like, hey, because we had Tucker Carlson last time, and that was an honor and a privilege. It was awesome, and usually Charlie joins us. We're big fans, so I'm wondering who it's going to be. I'm really excited.
Actually, you guys gave me a shout out in that one.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, because that was when the number one trending thing on Twitter right at the time was Madison was right.
Yeah, that's
and,
right.
and then Charlie Kirk just leaned back and said, Madison was right. And then there was a big applause. So thank you for that.
It's kind of gross how you ended up being proven right, if you know what I mean. Like the video that went around. But no, I'm just excited. We've got 18 days from now. So it's not even 3 weeks. It's going to be on the 20th. We'll be at AmFest. And then the next week is all of Christmas and New Year's. So we're basically off for 2 weeks.
Oh, man, I'll come to AmFest to watch you guys.
Yeah, you should definitely show up. And I'm looking at how this last month of the year is going. I'm looking at Trump's appointments, and I'm looking at January 3rd, January 6th, January 20th. I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything yet, but it's going to be epic in D.C. in the month of January. It's going to be fantastic. It is, and the left is going to be like, they're planning a J6 again. No. It's going to be like parties. Mm-hmm. It's going to be big shows. All the big personalities are showing up, planning on covering this historic inauguration. I'm super excited. And let's just, we got to get through 50 days, huh?
Look, I don't know what anyone else has been told, but the 6th of January is going to come whether they like it or not. What happens on the 6th of January is not going to be similar to what happened in 2021, but they're not going to be able to stop January 6th. That's coming whether you like it.
So when Trump won the first time, we had maybe a dozen Democrats stand in the well of the House of Representatives and object to the certifying of the duly elected president of the United States. Do you think an insurrection, if you will? People like Maxine Waters standing there, Sheila Jackson Lee, all these other Democrat lawmakers. Do you think that anybody has the balls to stand up in the well of the House and do that again and contest the election?
1,000%.
And who do you think it's going to be?
Raskin?
Nancy Pelosi?
Raskin?
Of course. I hope there's a betting line put out about this, and let's make a parlay of which ones do and which ones don't. I will bet on that in 2 seconds. I got insider knowledge. That'd be great.
$10 bet. If you get them all right, makes $1 million.
I mean, look.
It goes back to the White House press briefing thing that the Democrat freshman lawmakers that stand up and do that will then get a moment of virality, and they'll start off their little firebrand thing with a punch. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, what happened to the last group of people that did that?
Yeah,
they're still currently in prison awaiting, some of them awaiting sentence. So, I mean, if they do, I think that there should be, equal and fair treatment if they do.
Well, after Trump is sworn in, there's going to be a lot of space in the DC jail.
I hope so.
There's going to be a lot of equal and fair treatment when Donald Trump
That's exactly right. Equal and fair treatment.
Absolutely.
That's all we're asking
It'll be the most equal and most fair criminal prosecutions of corrupt government officials we've ever seen.
The equalest and fairest.
That's
There's
right.
Nothing
The
like
equalest
it.
and fairest. All right, everybody. We're going to go to Super Chat. So smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. But before we do, RichieJackson.com for all of our skateboard fans. Richie Jackson just launched a new video part. And guess what? He is now a pro skateboarder for Boonies. So if you want to pick up Richie's board and check out his new video part, he's got some never been done before tricks in this video part. It's really, really epic. There should be a trailer of some sort, but it's just gone up today. And no one told me to shout it out, but I figured I would give that shout out. It's $2. If you want to watch it, pay what you want. And the Boonies Richie Jackson board. Now I'm going to tell you this. Go to boonieshq.com, click shop, and you can grab this Richie Jackson skateboard. I'm going to tell you why. Richie's Australian, and with everything that's been going on and the demonization from people on the left who have attacked him and insulted him for literally doing nothing political. This is a skateboarder. He did nothing political. He just hung out. And so he told me he wanted to look like an American revolutionary, Continental Army soldier or whatever. And I was like, Richie, that's a very bold statement to put on your skateboard. And so he did. So he had an artist draw him as an American revolutionary soldier. And this is a guy who's from the Commonwealth. So if you want to pick up one of those Richie Jackson boards, boonieshq.com.
Before we go to Super Chat, can we talk about the skateboarding thing? Or can I talk about what's outside the studio?
It's a skate park.
Okay, so he's got a skate park out here, and I'm in a wheelchair, and I'm just saying, we're going to have some freaking fun right now.
Have you ever seen that there's like a pro dude?
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
he's a monster.
He's
really,
on Nitro
really,
Circus.
Really,
I think he did a backflip. I don't know.
Oh, he's really good. I'm not going to pull off a backflip, but I'll do something cool.
I gotta say,
he was already trying it out earlier. He already was.
I don't know the first thing about skateboarding, but I met Richie Jackson here at Timcast. He's one of the most swaggy dudes I know. He showed me part of the trailer of some of the tricks he was doing. They were absolutely phenomenal, and it would be worth your guys' time to check this guy out.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal skateboard. I don't know if you guys.
This guy is an amazing skateboarder. skater. Like, I don't know anything about skating, but the tricks this guy was doing was outrageous and worth checking out.
He had a painting. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. He actually told me he commissioned a painter to paint him as an American Revolutionary soldier.
It looks like he should be doing a kickflip off the back of the Black Pearl. That's exactly what I see.
There he is. All right. We're going to go to Super Chat, so smash that like button. Here we go. We got Jason Dixon. Tim, 53 months of membership, and you won't even read this. Uh-oh, I read it. What does that mean?
Ruh-roh.
Restart that countdown.
Yeah, restart the count. All right. Elf Tree Hugs, I got it. How about only people that have or adopt 2 children get Social Security? I'm personally, I'm totally fine with you can only vote if you have at least 2 kids.
Oh, I'm completely fine with that.
This is where I'm more libertarian. The one thing I'm more libertarian on, I don't care about paying for your kids. I don't like the nanny state. We don't need Social Security to be a thing at all. So if that's the route we're going.
I will say.
No, go ahead.
Luke, do any of you think that by the time you are old enough to draw Social Security, it will exist?
No.
Not in its current state. It'll exist in like a dumb.
I view it as a tax that I will never see again. I don't count on it. I think that somebody I heard say the other day, the American people have a spiritual gift of just ignoring the consequences if it's screaming them in the face.
So
they'll push it further and further down the line.
I will make this point. My point about why I think Social Security should be abolished is that it effectively replaced the family with the state for care of the elderly to a certain extent.
Yes.
Sam Cedar made an interesting point, and I disagree with it, as I just mentioned, but he does make this point that it's not just about a system of Social Security. It's the government paying people to help them. It's a driver of the economy. It's when these people get a check for $800 and they go spend that, a young person does the work and gets a portion of that as pay. And that was a strong portion of his argument for it was it actually expands the economy by making sure that all of these people have money to spend in the system. My response to that is children should be paying for their parents.
They should.
So when you are old and retired, I don't like old folks' homes. I don't think we should be doing that. We should be living with our parents if we have to. Families should stick together the way they used to. It is a product of the last century where we basically segmented the population in our families. So now it's, you're 18, get out of my house. You look at every other part of the world. They all live together.
My number one belief of a way to fix our culture is 3-generation households. Like I genuinely think that's great because you have the wisdom of the elderly, then seeping down into the children. You see the work ethic of your parents taking care of their parents. It's very understood that you're going to take care of your parents.
Yep.
And I think that's exactly how it should be. I mean, I think it would be a beautiful thing. Another thing, just going back to talking about children, I genuinely think this is a real thing. One, I think we should remove the federal income tax because it's ridiculous.
Hear, hear.
But if it's not going to be removed, I think that if you have or adopt 4 or more children, you should be in perpetuity no longer paying federal income tax.
We've said on the show 3 before.
I want 4. Let's go. Like I'm
Let's
all
do
here
3.5.
I'm here for procreation. Let's go.
You've got this argument from Democrats about how we need these migrant workers because we don't have enough, and it's like, yeah, because we're not having kids. So I agree. If you have, say 3 or 4,
3 or 4, whatever.
3 or 4, no more taxes.
Yep, I think that's and also imagine what a boon that would be for the economy.
Wait, and you got to be married.
Oh, you have to be married. Oh, yeah. No, it has to be a solid household. I mean, like there has to be a mother and a father in the household.
And if you get divorced,
unless someone dies, like
taxes
a
come
widow.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the term where it's like is the population rate? There's a specific term for it.
Replacement
Replacement rate.
Yeah.
Where I think Vodi Bakum said that like no society in history that has had a declining rate has been able to survive and recover. And people are freaking out about it in other countries right now. And I believe the United States has like just recently started hitting below that rate as well.
Well, only because of immigration as well. We don't have a replacement rate of Americans. I think like 0.7 of it is
we're bringing
immigration.
illegal. We have legally 10 million people coming in a year, and we just brought in 6. But one thing that I do want to bring up in regards to that is, and I have a lot of Muslim friends. I spend a lot of time in the UAE. I have a lot of respect for Islam. I really do. But I will tell you, there is a current aggressive attack of and I would call it a Muslim caliphate of some radicals who are now going into places like France, Germany, and in England, and their birth rate is their weapon. and they're having 6 and 7 children. What was the number one name in one of the?
It was Derry, I believe, in Ireland.
Yeah,
I thought it was Muhammad.
No, it was Muhammad.
No. Derry, Ireland.
Yes, Derry Island is where I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and the number one name was Muhammad, and people in Ireland couldn't believe it.
That's scary, guys. That's scary.
Let's jump to the super chat. We got Jason Dixon. He says, Tim, if you consider taking on new talent and bringing people in under your umbrella, let them create their own space and use them as special guests. And I don't mean to have them contact Ian, a real contract to you for this. Not possible. In today's day and age, it's not really something you can do because anybody who has the capability to do it just does it anyway. And so we've had conversations with a bunch of different individuals who produce content, and the response is always the same. But I already have a channel, and I can just make money for myself. And our response is, right, we would work a deal. We would use our expertise. We'd help run it, grow it. We'd make it bigger. I say, don't care. Most people are like, as long as I'm making a living, I'll figure it out on my own. And they don't want to do it. That's what it is. All right, here we go. The Emperor's Champion says, as an honorary PhD in trucking, I condemn the blatant cover-up of corruption and declare shenanigans on the deep state. As I stated earlier, if you're a member of Timcast, I hereby verbally decree you have a degree. There we go. I got it out. And so if you sign up at timcast.com for $10 a month, I hereby decree that you have a bachelor's degree in whatever you want. I don't know.
Underwater basket.
You pick. And if you are $25 member, not only do you get to join the Silver Lounge in the Discord server, but you get a honorary master's degree, courtesy of Timcast, verbal only. And if you give any more than that, which you can because you can customize your amount, you get a PhD from Timcast Media, verbally. And that means some of you may be doctors, those who are in the elite club. And the reason I made this point is there's that woman who she made the thesis, fictional smells are racist. Did you see this story?
What?
A woman in the UK wrote a thesis saying the description of negative smells in literature is racist, sexist, classist, and speciesist, and it's oppressive.
She got her PhD. That's her PhD, and now her name on X is Dr. whatever her name is. How? I mean, that is embarrassing.
Some people will go to not take a shower.
And I say now to all of you who are members at Timcast, you know what? I'm changing it. If you are a $25 member or more, you have an honorary Timcast PhD, and I hereby declare you are entitled to call yourself doctor. Because if Cambridge is going to call her doctor for that, then I think you should be allowed to call yourself doctor for this.
We're currently at 9:43 p.m. I really miss who I was at 9:42.
All right, let's go. Look at me says, someone please tell Tim that Mika is pronounced Mika and not Mika.
Micah.
He's been making this mistake for weeks. It's because I can call her whatever I want. People are going to be like, don't say Kamala.
Who cares? Who cares? I'm sorry. Who cares? It's just the country's on fire.
All right. Golden Fleece Game says, when are we getting Phil Labate pillows?
Oh, God. I don't know that you guys really want that. Come on.
Let's see.
We're all friends here. Come on.
Tonlock Alpha Dog says, Tim, it's snowboard season. You know, I started snowboarding because I skateboard, but they're not the same thing. So the assumption was like, I should get a snowboard because I know how to skateboard, and I prefer skiing.
I prefer skiing significantly.
Yeah, skiing's more fun. Yeah.
Okay, not anymore, Luke. I don't prefer skiing anymore. Okay, I wasn't in a wheelchair always.
You know, it's ice cold.
I just hate when guys with small arms try and make fun of me. Okay?
I carried you up here. We were on a second story.
I carried your career for years.
I said I carried that congressional office on my back for 2 years. It's fitting that I carry you into the podcast studio tonight.
I just want to make a public apology for what I made you endure in those years.
All right. Jason Dixon once again says, hey, Tim, why hasn't anyone discussed the North Carolina hurricane victims? They are turning the rubble into mulch, human body parts in this mulch. We did. It came up on the show, and how these the locals, what did you call them? The hillbillies.
The wise hillbillies. I said the wise hillbillies.
Hill William to use.
Yeah, and no, I'm glad that you brought this up. This is a tragedy that's happened. I mean, it's a storm unlike anything I've ever seen. We can go into why the storm was went there or directed
And
there.
Madison,
all kinds of questions.
I mean, to cut you off, used to represent this area. That's crucial.
Yes,
You
yes.
uniquely understand this.
I used to represent this area. The FEMA response was terrible. The response from the federal office there was absolutely abysmal. I don't want to go into all the details of it.
Do you feel that those who are representing the district now in your stead they've done a bad job?
They've done a terrible job.
I didn't even have to finish. You knew right away.
It's been absolutely awful. You can take full command of FEMA as the representative. You just have to send a letter to the governor.
Wow.
They'll do an emergency response from
who's
the president. His name's, I don't even want to say his name.
All right, then,
an establishment plant.
Wow.
But when you start looking at it, I mean, now FEMA is paying. I think I've heard from a couple guys that their dump trucks were being paid $6,000 a week per dump truck per driver, and many of them had been sitting in the parking lot for 2 weeks and had not been sent out a single time. And they were over 100 of them. That means $600,000 a week was being spent for these people to just sit there. That is your tax dollars, and nothing was being done with them. So if you are the federal representative there, you should be cracking down. This should be the number one topic of conversation in the United States, the terrible just miscarriage of treatment of the people of Western North Carolina, who are phenomenal people, but they are so effing resilient. These guys are able to just take care of each other, take care of one another. And this is one of the reasons where I'm saying, you know, it made me pretty daggum libertarian. I went up there with 3 trailer loads worth of goods. We had a lot of people coming into the area. So many people were just helping out their neighbors, and that is what makes America so great. It goes back to the point we were talking about earlier. A society that polices itself requires significantly less government. Yep. Also, a society who is willing to help out their neighbors requires significantly less government, and that is why all of you should be very well versed in how to live. You can have 1,000 people with PhDs, although I love the people who now have PhDs from Timcast. Phenomenal. So you should subscribe at $25 to get that. But I am telling you. Yeah, verbally decreed.
Nothing else.
Yeah. But then when you start looking into what's going on with this area, having one redneck friend was worth having 1,000 friends with PhDs. I mean, it is just so ridiculous.
That's true normally.
It's true normally because, I mean, people often mistake education for intellect. It is not the exact same
thing.
So
this was interesting that I went down the week after the hurricane to Asheville, North Carolina, and at the Harley-Davidson dealership there, they had tourist helicopters flying in and out, dropping supplies off to the people in the mountains. There were just a bunch of redneck veterans who were like, you know, also the men in Washington, D.C. versus the men in North Carolina was just staggering to me, the ones that took charge. There were National Guard representatives that were reporting to the civilian teams that were on the ground there, and they're coordinating flying helicopters in and out, dropping, not waiting for FEMA to show up. They said, we had one FEMA truck come in the last few hours, and it pulled around the corner in the parking lot of a grocery store and set up with 2 people and a clipboard for people to write down their email address and get information. That was the only federal response they had had up until that point. Everything else was the churches sending resources and the veterans distributing them.
And do not forget that FEMA was sent instructions, which there's been a congressional hearing on this, to not go to homes that were actively supporting President Donald Trump. It's insanity. And if you say there's not a weaponization of government, this is literally weaponizing aid against Trump supporters.
That's been the case. The weaponization of government has been the case since 2012 or whatever, with the IRS and Lois Lerner and the IRS attacking conservatives, whatever they were doing, whether it be I guess it was
Well, it was the Obama IRS was unfairly auditing conservative organizations.
Yeah, and so that was a reality back then, and that's 12 years ago now. So and nothing has changed. Nothing has gotten better. There hasn't been a significant change in the attitude of the government. And again, I'll reiterate. In the past election, 95% or 96% of D.C. voted for Kamala Harris. At this point, with that kind of unified opinion, the 4% of people that voted for Donald Trump were very quiet about it, and the people that voted for Kamala Harris, they unquestionably look at people that are Trump supporters or conservatives. They look at them as bad people, and they think when they act that way, when they punish them, they are actually doing something that is good.
Let's grab the super chat from Just Leave Me Alone. Hey, Madison, you don't happen to live in Florida's 1st congressional district, do you? I hear they need a congressman.
Oh, that's a wonderful question.
My mind.
Yeah, I'll tell you, but that's the number one. I think there's more active duty military in the 1st congressional district than ever. But I will tell you, Matt Gaetz leaves some pretty big shoes, but it's not where I live. I genuinely believe that federal representatives should live in their district. It's not a federal requirement. You just have to live in the state. But I live in Southwest Florida. Byron Donalds is my congressman, and if God, everyone's
Byron's great.
Oh, Byron's phenomenal. Byron's phenomenal. He's one of the best. He's the best congressman in the United States of America. But yeah, I would love to. Yeah, I think he's going to be running for governor, and I will be voting for him for governor. He'll do a great job.
Did DeSantis pick who he was going to appoint for that seat? I think for the Senate seat.
He hasn't picked it yet.
Dude. If we had 20 minutes to peel back the layers of the onion on the Florida politics behind the scenes situation,
it is so spicy and fun right now. I wish we could.
Florida Republicans run the Republican Party. I feel like half the cabinet.
So you've
is
got
from
like
Florida.
it's like Knives Out right now. Everybody's trying to get that seat.
Well, I will tell you, going to what you just said, it's the west coast of Florida. I mean, you look at what the west coast of Florida. You have Byron Donalds, you have Anna Paulina Luna, you have Matt Gaetz, you have Greg Steube. It is the most hardcore Republican area you can find in the country. But yeah, it's
then Susan Wiles, Marco Rubio, all these Florida guys.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not necessarily
30 seconds. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, because that's what I'm about to answer.
Boil it down into 30 seconds is that in 2018, I worked for Governor DeSantis on his gubernatorial campaign. That's where I met Susie Wiles. She won that election for Ron DeSantis. Because of political reasons, Ron DeSantis pushed Susie out unfairly and then went and got her fired from the Trump campaign in 2020 in Florida, and then got her fired from her lobbying firm in Washington, D.C., and single-handedly made sure she was unemployed. Donald Trump picked her back up a few months later. She solidified an operation around him during Save America Days in 2021. Ron DeSantis was furious that Susie had been brought into Trump's orbit. Susie built up that operation and obliterated Ron DeSantis in his presidential primary election. And then she knows that state so well that she has stacked the administration with these officials that she knows are going to do a good job. So all behind the scenes, if you know that, like, the reason Ron DeSantis will never appoint Matt Gaetz is that Matt Gaetz was somebody who went really hard against DeSantis in order to make sure that Trump was there. But also Casey hates Matt Gaetz. Ron's wife hates Matt Gaetz. And the inward dynamics now give Ron DeSantis this little leg up, I guess, for him to try and appoint somebody to the Senate seat. And I think it's going to be an insider like his chief of staff, as opposed to somebody that the Trump orbit might want, because it's that last little on the back of his head.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for the little inside baseball to Florida politics.
I will just say that was 1 minute and 12 seconds. So Luke is a liar. He's got small arms. Just a huge shout out to Susie Wiles. She set up an amazing election integrity team, and the fact that not a single state was one for Kamala where we have to show voter ID. I think that's the greatest thing in the world. And if that does not make everyone want to go absolutely rabid to declare voter ID has to be done. The fact that you are voting for your county commissioner on the exact same ballot you're voting for your president on, they are drastically different things. There needs to be a level. I mean, you can do it with blockchain. You can do it with a lot of things. One reason I love the Cyto company, because they're trying to do that. But there are so many options where, like, I think it should be as well documented as how a $100 bill looks. It should be impossible to cheat on our elections. It should be literally impossible.
Yeah.
All right, let's grab this from the Y Wing. It says, hey, Madison, as a North Carolina native, are you worried that our mostly Democrat swing state in the state government will be combative to the incoming Trump administration? Do you think that Robinson's scandal ruined things for us?
I don't think Robinson's scandal ruined things for us. I think that was, and this is one thing I do want to say in regards to that. I care very little for what you do in your personal life when I'm electing you to office. I legitimately do. I know a lot of people might disagree with this, but as long as you vote correctly, what you do in your personal life or what you've done 10, 15 years ago means very little to me. I like Mark Robinson a lot. He's a great guy. He's one of the greatest orators I've ever heard. But I will say, whatever you do in your personal life, I think that it should factor into things. But legitimately, I'm hiring you to do a job, and if you're going to go in and be a bulldog and be an assassin and take care of business, I don't really care what you do in your private life. That's one thing I believe. But no, we do have a majority in the state house and state senate. That's one thing I really like. There's a lot of questions of why we can never win the governor's mansion in that state. I think we could talk about this for a long time. I think you and I know which counties we need to talk about. It's a very, very weird state.
I love it. It's my home. But we elect Donald Trump. We elect a Democrat governor. We elect a Democrat lieutenant governor. We elect a Republican secretary of agriculture or whatever. I mean, it's just all over the place. And, I would yell at Republicans for not voting down ballot.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I think Luke Ball would make a phenomenal governor of North Carolina. I mean, but I do want to say the state's so weird. I mean, there's a lot of part of it that's very, very red. They legitimately changed the state constitution. They changed the state constitution so that they could redraw my congressional district because that's just how wanky the entire thing is. It's a unique state.
Wow. All right, let's grab some more super chats. Let's see what we got.
Let's get a spicy one.
Well, we'll see. We got Keith's Mind and Bodybuilding says, I'm Groton RYS CCETC camp director. We had 2 times the scholarships asked this last year. We have free year and round programs to develop skills not taught in school. We have taught woodworking, MTG, dice, thrones, MTG meets Yahtzee, and more. Oh, very cool. Well, there you go. Mind and bodybuilding. I dig that. Bring all of those morbidly obese Magic the Gathering players in and get them ripped. Mind and body.
So frustrating in high school doing discrete math when I knew I was never going to implement that in my whole life.
All right.
I would much rather be doing politics.
Tex Vet says, Elaad is the perfect example of the dying old neocon positions. What do you say about Trump watering down the war talking point? Good. Less war is good. From a combat vet, not a reporter.
I think by some of your naive standards, most of Trump's cabinet are neocons. So if you run down the list, I think that's the conclusion you'd come to.
I had to read it because you're a self-professed Bolton bro.
Sure, I think Bolton's been sliding a little bit. I might have to change it up a little bit. We
need to have.
That's why he has the mustache.
I might officially start coming out for Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley might start being my girl. The neocons are an essential part of the Republican Party. Cawthorn, you were talking all episode about how it needs to be a Big Ten and we need to bring everybody in. And
I do not want American sons and daughters to die on some godforsaken soil for a country that does not matter to us. I want our military to be so aggressive. I want us to have a Death Star to where the point. I mean, I support the military-industrial complex until we build a Death Star, and then if you want to mess with us, cool. We'll do a single reactor fire like we did, and it'll be taken care of.
What was it? Was it Coruscant?
No, it wasn't Coruscant. The single reactor fire that was from Rogue One.
Well, even mosquitoes.
The single reactor fire.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just want to push back a little bit. I actually think the neocons are the people who keep us safe and help keep our enemies fearful of attacks. Trump often cited John Bolton as the guys for the madman factor in his old cabinet. So I think he's utilizing some of the same, different people, but similar ideologies in his
Yes. So
cabinet.
I want to create an entire. Let me make my points very nuanced on how I feel about war. I want us not to have a Secretary of Defense. I want us to have a Secretary of Offense. I want us to be such an aggressive...
Like the Secretary of War.
Yeah, a Secretary of War. I want us to be so aggressive that make it a... If you kill an American citizen in another country, you should be able to go to another country as an American citizen. If you pull out a blue passport with a freaking eagle on it, the entire country be like, I'm so sorry. Make it like you're a Roman citizen. I didn't realize you did this. And it's like, if an American citizen or an American girl gets assaulted in another country, if one of our people get mugged, we are sending murder teams to your country and you will die. We will take care of business. There are a lot of things that I believe. I think we should be overtly, incredibly aggressive. But I think that we should have the most state-of-the-art weaponry. I think that we should fund the military-industrial complex to a great point. But we should be so aggressive that the fact we never need to use it. The fact that this is what I don't like about warmongers is they look at this and they say, we need to foster wars in other places so that Lockheed Martin can sell more missiles, so that Boeing can make more attack helicopters for us. These kind of things. That's not what I want. I want us to have the most powerful military, the most well-trained military, the most aggressive military. But I do not ever want us to waste a dollar overseas. I never want our sons and daughters to die for things that are not for Americans. America should be for Americans. And I think that the Americans should be for the Americas as a whole. This is actually a unique point that I have. Why are we trading and having all of our offshore production being done with countries that hate us when South America is an outrageously predominantly Christian continent? Most of them are Catholics, and we can talk about Catholicism if you want, but they are outspoken Christians, they're born again believers, and these are people that I think if we have to have something and we can't bring it back on shore, send it down to the Americas. Let our closest allies be our closest allies. Let the rest of the world starve and see what life is like without Americans.
Absolutely.
All right, we gotta wrap it up. So smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know, and become a member at timcast.com. Because if you sign up up right now for at least $25. You can immediately join the chat. You can immediately submit questions to join the call-in show. And I hereby decree that you have a PhD in whatever you want, because
A beautiful PhD.
a beautiful one. It's the best. Everyone agrees. And so timcast.com.
You can go to Wharton School of Finance, or you can go to Timcast.
University.
Look, if you want a real diploma on your wall with an actual degree where other people clap for you, you ain't getting it from Timcast. But if you want to call yourself Dr. Whatever, then sure, become a Timcast member. Smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Madison, do you want to shout anything out?
You know, I just want to say we have a phenomenal country. You should have a lot of hope. You should be ready to go forward, and do not take our foot off the pedal. Continue fighting like we're still in an election.
Right on.
Neocons have their place in our political environment, much like mosquitoes have their place in the food chain.
You guys are more friendly to libertarians. It's outrageous.
We are.
You don't want to shout anything out?
No, that's it. That's all.
Follow him at Luke Ball. Follow me at Madison
At Luke
Cawthorn.
T. Ball, Madison Cawthorn. Give us a follow.
My name is Elaad Eliyahu. You can find me under that name
spell it.
under
Spell
Twitter.
No
Forget
idea.
that, but I did want to quickly send my thoughts and prayers to the parents of Omer Nutra, an American-Israeli hostage held by Hamas who was killed during the October 7th attack. This was followed by a tweet from a truth from Trump threatening hell to pay if the hostages aren't released. At the end of this truth, he said, "Release the hostages now." I wanted to commend Trump for his moral clarity when it comes to this issue.
Well said.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. You can subscribe to my Twix page. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is called All That Remains. You can check us out on Apple Music, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. We have 4 new music videos out. One for a song called Forever Cold, Let You Go, No Tomorrow, and one for a song called Divine. And don't forget, The Left Lane is for Crime.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about 1 minute. Thanks for hanging out.